This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crime in Court with Heather. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are reading through the Menendez brothers' second trial, and good news for you guys. We are going to be, when I am finished with the Delphi case, so you guys voted, and this is your choice. So when I'm finished reading through the Delphi case, which are on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the week, I think we've got 2 weeks left, 4 episodes left. So when that's over, we're going to be extending Menendez to Tuesdays and Thursdays so that we can finish this up a little bit faster. So that's good news for you guys. Going forward, we'll get through it a little bit quicker. So let's get started here. We are starting our day. What is today? This is December 20th, 1995. And we're starting right in the morning. So we're continuing on with Erik Menendez's cross. The court says, in the trial, the participants are all here. The jury is in the jury room. Is there something counsel wants to discuss before we resume? Mr. Levin says, yes, Your Honor. I understand this morning that Mr. Conn may be presenting to Erik Menendez the shotgun that has been introduced as evidence in this trial for some sort of demonstration, simulation, or experiment of which we have no knowledge. First, I object to the use of that shotgun in any manner that requires my client to handle it in front of the jury. We are also objecting on the basis that we have no knowledge with respect to what it is that he may be asking Mr. Menendez to do with that shotgun, that the courtroom is an inappropriate place for Erik Menendez to handle the shotgun. To the north, he points it at counsel table and the audience. To the east resides the jury. To the west is Your Honor. There is only one wall that he can point the shotgun at, which is the south wall in this courtroom, and the jury couldn't see what it is that he would be doing. And in any event, we feel that Mr. Conn, if he is allowed to use a shotgun in any manner, that he must so state before he does. Give us an opportunity to object to any demonstration or any simulation or any experiment that he wishes Mr. Menendez to do or any function that he requests Mr. Menendez to perform with the shotgun. Any time that the defendant might be holding the shotgun, it's extremely prejudicial because then the jury can imagine them doing something with it. They can see it. They can see them holding it, so they can imagine the crime. They can imagine that person doing it. So it's very prejudicial. The court says, did you intend to do this morning? Mr. Levin says, and also one other point with respect to security. Court says, yes. Mr. Levin says, if there is going to be such a demonstration, we are asking the court to inform the defense with respect to what type of security measures. The court says, yes, we will talk about that in a closed setting. Mr. Levin says, very well. The court says, all right. As far as the use of the weapon as an exhibit, did you intend to do that this morning? Mr. Conn says, I may be showing him the shotgun this morning. However, we're not going to be doing any simulations or experiments here. I am simply going to show him the weapon. It may be necessary for him to handle the weapon, but I don't think it's necessary to broadcast to counsel exactly what questions I am going to ask him concerning the weapon. The court says, before you actually hand the weapon to the defendant, we will take a break. As I intended before, any questions relating to the handling of the weapon can be asked first before the weapon actually is utilized by giving it to the defendant. And before that occurs, before you propose to give it to the defendant for any purpose, I would expect that the questions will have established a foundation as to why it would be relevant for him to handle this weapon. And then we'll take a recess before that proposed course of action occurs, and certainly there are matters I will discuss before we get to that. But you are instructed not to actually hand the weapon to the defendant or indicate that you propose to do that until you have established a foundation and until we have had a recess. Mr. Conn says, all right. The court says, all right. Anything else before we resume? Mr. Gessler says, Your Honor, there is the Oziel issue that should be resolved before we go into those areas, Your Honor. The court says, all right. Are you going to go into those areas of prior statements to Oziel and or Signorelli this morning? Mr. Conn says, when we say prior statements, I think the only thing counsel is concerned about with regard to that motion is statements made to Oziel which the defendant had previously denied. I don't think counsel is objecting to statements to Oziel he previously admitted. So that's not the basis for their objection. Court says, my question is, are you going to go into those? No, says Mr. Conn. I don't think I will be going into that this morning. Mr. Gessler says, and it also covers the area of Signorelli in the motion, also the things he denied. Mr. Conn says, don't think I will be going into anything denied concerning Signorelli either. The court says, not this morning anyway? No, says Mr. Conn. The court says, okay, let's get the jury out, and the jury enters. And now we're going to resume our cross-examination of Erik Menendez. The court says, good morning to you all, and we're ready to resume with the testimony, the cross-examination of the defendant, Erik Menendez. I will remind you, you're still under oath, and the people may continue the cross-examination. Mr. Conn says, Erik Galen Menendez, the defendant herein on the stand at the time of the adjournment resumed, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Mr. Conn says, now, was Thursday, Mr. Menendez, when you went over to the guest house and spoke to Lyle Menendez, that you concluded that your father was going to kill you. Is that correct? Yes. And your brother also indicated to you that he believed that your father was going to kill both himself and yourself. Is that correct? Yes. And you also concluded that your mother would also kill both of you. Is that correct? Yes. Not only that she would kill you, but that she was going to kill you. Is that correct? We felt that she was going to or probably going to. And what do you mean going to or probably going to? What do you mean by that? That's pretty self-explanatory. Well, obviously, nothing was for certain. We believed that they would do anything to keep the secret a secret, and that they absolutely believed that we were going to expose it and that they would kill us to stop that from happening. When you say that nothing was certain, did it ever become certain to you that your parents were going to kill you? At times over those few days, I believed it more than at other times. I believed it absolutely on Sunday night. I believed it before we went on the fishing trip. And when we got back from the fishing trip, I wasn't so certain. I was hoping things were going to work out, and Friday morning I was hoping things were going to work out. You were certain Sunday night when you shot your parents to death, is that correct? Yes. And when else were you certain that your parents were going to kill you? I was either certainly or strongly believed it before we went on the fishing trip on Friday night when my mother told me that the fishing trip had been changed to a later date. I got extremely concerned. I think he means time, but not date, but same thing. They changed it, they pushed it back. Now, when you went over to the guest house, you indicated that your mother went over after you. Is that correct? On Thursday night? Yes. And after she left, you then began to discuss with your brother your conclusion that your parents were going to kill you. Is that correct? First, we discussed what had just happened. I wanted to know what happened with my brother's talk with my father, and he was telling me to calm down and tell me why mom was just screaming, what was just going on. And I told him about what had happened with my father, and he had told me what had happened with the discussion with dad. And that's when we locked the door. Now, how much time elapsed before you and your brother concluded that your father was going to kill you? Well, we were concerned about it right away. I was immediately, once I found out that Lyle had basically threatened to expose dad. And I was just saying, we're going to die. We're going to die. I can't believe you threatened dad. That's when I locked the door. That's when it first occurred to me that the seriousness of what had happened. So you immediately concluded that your father was going to kill you, correct? Yes. And did you immediately conclude that your mother was going to kill you as well? At that point, I thought they were one and the same. Anything Jose did, Kitty agreed. Kitty was his right hand gal. She would do whatever he wanted. So immediately after your mother left and you learned that your brother had threatened your father, you immediately concluded that your mother was going to kill you. Is that correct? Yes. And that is because your mother and father are a team. Is that what you're telling us? She had just told me that she had known about the sex and that blew me away. And I didn't know who my mother was at that point. I was beginning to doubt everything, and my mother had been my father's enforcer all of our lives. His enforcer? What do you mean by his enforcer? She either carried out punishments, or at times I felt that she was on our side when I was a child, but other times she would purposely put the blame on me so that I would get beaten instead of her. And in my mind, I went back and forth of whether she was dad's enforcer or a victim. He went back and forth in his mind about whether she was his dad's enforcer or a victim of his. That she felt like she needed to enforce them or else she would be abused. I don't know. I don't think so. I think she was 100% complicit. Were you aware that many mothers punish their children at the request of or with the consent of their father of the family? Objection calls for speculation. It's also argumentative. Sustained. Did you regard all mothers as enforcers of the will of the father? Objection. It's irrelevant, Your Honor. Sustained. Why do you call your mother the enforcer? It's just the first word that popped into my mind. Is it because it sounds very ominous to you, Mr. Menendez? It's just the first word that popped into my mind. It just came up with I just came up with an adjective. I can talk. Mr. Lemon says, objection, Your Honor. He hasn't. The court says, did you finish your answer? Yes, Your Honor, says the witness. Mr. Conn says, your mother sometimes punished you. Is that correct? I wasn't so much referring to just the times when she punished us, just the times when someone had to take the blame for something that happened in the household. The answer is yes. And it was because your mother sometimes punished you to feel it because your mother sometimes punished you. You felt that therefore, and because your mother knew about the molestation, you believed that therefore your mother would kill you. Is that correct? More the latter. And this is the first time in your life that you concluded that your mother would kill you, is that correct? Intentionally. And you reached that conclusion within moments of learning that your mother had known about the molestation. Is that what you're saying? At that point, I was just running out of the house and I wasn't really thinking anything just to get to Lyle. As soon as Lyle told me about the conversation he had had with Dad, in which I felt that he threatened to expose Dad, it hit me that this is what was happening. Now, you told us previously that when your mother had a rifle in the home, you concluded that your mother would not use the rifle against you. Is that correct? Right. And that's because you concluded that your mother loved you. Is that correct? I believe she did. What made you believe that your mother loved you, Mr. Menendez? She was my mom. We loved each other. I could not blame or I could not imagine it being any other way. What was it about her as a person that caused you to conclude that she loved you? Mostly the fact that she was my mom, and I remember when she used to smile at me and how happy that would make me, and I felt throughout our childhood that I was trying to help her, and she would sometimes try to help me. I can't give you any specific reason other than her smile. I just believed it. Was your relationship with your mother so superficial, Mr. Menendez, that when you think about the relationship, all you could think about is a smile on her face? Objection, it's argumentative. The witness begins to answer. The court says, rephrase the question. Mr. Conn says, did you have a relationship with your mother, Mr. Menendez, that went any deeper than your appreciation of a nice smile on a face? My relationship with my mother went to the deepest possible level. It was complex and yet very simple. She was my mother and I loved her, and I used to cling on to her when I was a child, and she was the only person I loved more than anyone when I was a baby. But what stands out is what stands out in my mind is her smile, because I can't relate many instances when she protected me against my father. So she didn't protect him, and she wouldn't be protecting him if Jose had tried to kill her, or to kill them. I'm sorry, to kill them. He wouldn't protect them. Is that because, Mr. Menendez, that the last thing in the world that you want to do is tell this jury anything positive that you remember about your mother? Objection, argumentative. No, says the witness, overruled. Mr. Conn says, then can you tell us, Mr. Menendez, why is it that you loved her as a person? Because she was my mom. I couldn't imagine not loving her. I think it's just natural that a child loves its mother and a mother loves its child for no other reason than that. You will tell us nothing other than the fact that she was your mother and she had a nice smile. Is that correct, Mr. Menendez? Objection. Argumentative, says Mr. Levin. The witness says, if you want me to, the court says, overruled. If you want me to relay happy times that I remember with my mother, Mr. Conn says, I want you to tell the jury, Mr. Menendez, if indeed you truly loved your mother, what was it about this woman as a person that you loved? I felt I felt sorry for her most of my childhood. She was my mom, and I can't give you any better explanation than she was my mother. I loved her smile when she was happy, and I constantly tried to get her happy because she looked like she was a glowing person when she was smiling, which was probably not a whole lot in that household when she smiled. So, those are probably the good times, remembering a smile on her face because she probably didn't smile all that often when Jose was around, or when she was lamenting about what a horrible life she had because her children ruined her life. And that is where your relationship with your mother stopped, Mr. Menendez? Objection. It's argumentative. Rephrase the question, says the court. Mr. Conn says, is that the depth of your relationship to this woman? Mr. Menendez, you were related to her by birth, and she had a nice smile. I think you're really misunderstanding what I'm saying. My relationship to her by birth had nothing to do with it, whether she adopted me or not. She was my mother. She was the person who I viewed as I just viewed her as this glorious thing when I was very young, and that feeling didn't go away. And the feeling of feeling very bad for her in my life and hating my dad for what he used to do to her made me love her even more and want to protect her even more. I don't know what you're asking more than the fact that she was my mother and I loved her. Well, isn't it true, Mr. Menendez, that you had a superficial or non existent relationship with your mother? There wasn't much communication. Objection, Your Honor, argumentative, overruled. The witness says there wasn't much communication, but in my family, the bonds went beyond words. It was a look. It was hearing someone cry in another room and wanting to be with them. It was not superficial by any means. So I guess he heard his mom cry in another room and not able to do anything about it because dad was around and he couldn't go comfort her. Isn't it true, Mr. Menendez, that you had no attachment whatsoever to this woman except for a smile on the face? Like, what is your point, buddy? No attachment to your mom? He's explained it multiple times now. He loved her. How do you explain why you love your mom? You just do. Stop asking the question like you're demeaning the relationship or something. I don't know. Anyway, so isn't it true that Mr. Menendez that you had no attachment whatsoever to this woman except for a smile on the face that you claimed you liked? A smile on a face was a big thing to me as a child. I didn't have a home where there were hugs and there were kisses and there were I love yous. Those things weren't done in my home. They weren't. They were frowned upon by my father. What I remember most, what brightened my day, was my mom smiling, and that is, it's much more to me. Maybe it's just a picture to you. And objection, argumentative. I'm going to make a motion to strike, says Mr. Conn. Mr. Conn wants that to be stricken because he writes, or he says, it's much more. It's much more to me. Maybe it's just a picture to you, Mr. Prosecutor. Objection. Motion to strike. So the court says, rephrase the question. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. He has a right to answer the prosecutor's questions. The witness says, and it might be just that to you, but to me, as a boy, that was the greatest gift my mother could give. Mr. Conn says, the question, Mr. Menendez, is not, what is it to me? The question is, what is it to you? Can you tell this jury about this woman as a person, not as a smiling face, but as a person? Do you understand the difference? Objection. It's vague, Your Honor. It's not to ask the witness if he understands the difference. Overruled, says the court. I thought I did. I guess I'm not understanding the difference. Mr. Conn says, you have just told this jury the full extent of your attachment to this woman. Is that correct? My attachment to this woman. Objection is this woman was my mother. And Mr. Conn says, you already told us that, Mr. Menendez. And when she died, I was anguished over her death, and I still long for her back. And my attachment is not superficial. I can't even comprehend what you're saying. And you will tell this jury nothing positive about her as a person. Is that correct, Mr. Menendez? Objection. It's argumentative, says Mr. Levin. Court says sustained. Mr. Conn says, can you think of anything positive about her as a person, Mr. Menendez, that you loved? She used to protect me from others outside the home. When someone would yell at me, she would yell at them and stand up for me. Strangers, I remember those times. I remember Christmases and the presents. The presents would be under the Christmas tree, and we would wake up early in the morning. My brother and I would go downstairs with our blankets, and I'd run into my mother's room because I know she'd like to take pictures. And I'd wake her up and say, I want to take pictures now because we want to go open presents. And she'd come down and be smiling, and there would be stockings. And I remember the happy times of Christmas mornings when she was glowing and all happy. I have a good memory of my mom, not an enormous amount, but enough to make me know that I loved her very much. Can you tell us anything more about why you love this woman as a person? No. You loved your father, you said. Yes. Can you tell us why you loved him as a person, aside from the fact that he is your father? Objection, Your Honor. He can answer the question any way he deems. Court says, okay, the objection is overruled. The witness says, I love my father more out of admiration. He was the strongest, most powerful, most intelligent, fearless man I have ever met, and I viewed him as larger than life. And when I was at tennis matches and there would be a problem within the lines call, he would stand up for me, and he was a bear of a human, and he was, as a child, that was incredible to me, and I loved him for that. Mostly I admired him. I admired who he was, and I admired the family and the tradition which he came from. Can you tell us anything more about why you loved him as a person? This is driving me crazy because, like, who gives a crap? Like, it's hard to explain that and to say it on the stand and to be like, it's hard to be emotional like that. It's hard to say why you love someone. Sometimes it's hard to put things into words, especially complex relationships like these. These questions aren't really going anywhere for me. I don't know if they're going somewhere for the jury, but no. So how long did it take your brother to conclude that your mother and your father were going to kill the two of you? Objection calls for speculation. Overruled. I'm not sure. Mr. Conn says, well, was it part of the conversation that he agreed with you? Yes, our mother and our father are going to kill us. Yes. And Thursday night you stayed in the guest house, is that correct? Yes, I did. And you locked the door, is that correct? Yes, I did. And you figured that your father was going to come and kill you Thursday night, is that correct? I thought of the possibility. And so since that was a possibility that your father was going to come in and kill you Thursday night, did you and your brother leave the house? That's what Lyle wanted to do. I am not asking what Lyle wanted to do. I am saying, did you and your brother leave the house Thursday night? No. Why not? Because I told Lyle that I couldn't go. I told him that there was nowhere we could go and that it just wasn't possible. I told him that not to leave me. He wanted to get out and I was refusing to leave. They probably would have been better if they had gone like to a hotel or something, but uh, if they used a credit card, obviously Jose could find them, so they'd have to use cash and it would maybe if they had gone out of the house for a few days, maybe things would have cooled off. I don't know, potentially. But their fear would have just grown and their anxiety about going back to the house, so that still would be there. Did you feel your life was in danger that night? Yes. You had no means of defending yourself, is that correct? I don't know what you mean by that. Did you have a gun that you could use to protect yourself with? Not a gun. Did you have any weapons in the guest house? No. Did you feel that you were vulnerable to attack by your father that night? Possibly. Why didn't you leave? I don't know. Is that because, Mr. Menendez, you were never in danger at the time that week and you knew it? No, I was definitely in danger, and they were definitely going to do anything to keep this secret from coming out, but I cannot give you any reason why I could not leave. I just couldn't. Probably paralyzed with fear. This was probably the moment he dreaded all along, getting the secret out to someone and then this happening. With Jose wanting to now take Lyle's and his life. Did your brother tell you that it's the wise thing to do to leave? Yes. And did you give your brother a reason why you didn't want to leave? I told him that I couldn't, and that if he left, he would have to leave me here and that I would die. In fact, I even told him that I would kill myself. I told him that he has to stay and that there's no way we can go, that anywhere we go, Dad will find us, and that's why we couldn't leave. There was nothing physically stopping you from leaving, is that correct? Right. And you had a car and car keys and gas in the car, didn't you? Yes. And then you could have just left your house and gone to the police or gone and lived somewhere else, couldn't you? I couldn't have gone to the police. Why couldn't you go to the police, Mr. Menendez? What were the police going to do? I am asking you, Mr. Menendez, why didn't you go to the police? I couldn't imagine going to the police and telling them what was going on. It was just I viewed the police as like an agency at the time, not as a human being, and I didn't believe that there was any chance that my father was going to stand trial on a molestation charge. It just wasn't going to happen, and my father would much rather kill me than ever let that happen. What do you mean when you say you regard it as an agency and not a human being? I regard police as an agency. I didn't know any police officers in my life. I wasn't close to them. The only time I saw the police officers is the way my father handled them or when we got pulled over for a ticket. I didn't know, and I even afterwards I didn't view the police as people that I could relate to. I understand that now. Mr. Lubin is a police officer, and I was able to get close to him, and I have come to understand that I could have, and that maybe I should have, and maybe could have gone to Detective Zoller. At the time, it just was inconceivable to me that my father would allow me to live going to the police. It just, I couldn't. I mean, even if I had gone to the police and said, my dad is doing these things, they would have said, okay, well, we'll check it out with your father, and he would have killed me. Mr. Menendez, you were almost 19 years old at the time, correct? Yes. You were not a little child? No. And are you telling us that before you can go to the police, you needed to know the police officer personally? You were unable to go to an impersonal agency? All I knew was about the way that I saw the police being treated by my father. I saw the way the police were about by my father, and it's something that he regarded as he certainly wasn't afraid of them. Are you saying that you needed to know a police officer personally by name and by face in order for you to go to the police station at that time? No. What I'm saying is I What I'm saying is, had I known a police officer or someone that had been a police officer that I could have gotten maybe close to over my life, that it might have changed my view of the world. But as I saw it, the police was an institution and an agency that were very impersonal, and they weren't going to, I couldn't imagine that they would, one, be on my side against my father, who was a powerful figure in Beverly Hills, or protect me. Are you trying to portray yourself as a helpless child intimidated by impersonal agencies, Mr. Menendez? Objection. Argumentative, Your Honor. Overruled. No. Mr. Conn says, and you knew that whether or not you knew a police officer by face and by name, that you can go to the police station at the age of almost 19 and the police officers at the police station would talk to you. Did you realize that? Objection calls for speculation what the officers would do. Overruled. They would talk to me? Yes. Yes. And you knew that they would take your report, even if they didn't. Objection. It calls. Let me finish the question, says Mr. Conn. Please do, says Levin. Mr. Conn says, and you knew they would take your report even though they didn't know you on a first name basis, correct? Objection. Calling for speculation. The court says, you are asking for his state of mind in August of 1989? Yes, Your Honor. Overruled. I didn't know I didn't know what reports were. Sorry, I'm having tongue twister moments. I didn't know police procedure. I didn't know these things. I didn't even think of police officers as kind, warm people who were going to go in there and save a child from a family, no matter how strong or how powerful or how much money the father has, and protect them from my father. I just couldn't imagine. When I got to Barry Levin, the attorney, I began to understand further. Until then, and we are talking years later, I still did not believe that a cop would ever be able to do something or even stop his father. And think about, too, the implications of a son going to the law enforcement to report their dad, and then the dynamic of the family after that, what he does to the family after that. And if there ever were to be a trial, that whole time leading up to trial, Erik and Lyle's lives would be in danger. So there's no great answer. There's no great way to deal with this, especially in this situation, in this time period when this stuff wasn't talked about. It wasn't, not that it wasn't known, but it just wasn't talked about. It wasn't taken seriously. Male on male sexual abuse wasn't considered a thing. Like, the prosecutors in the first trial still argued that it wasn't, that you don't have the equipment to do that. Like, what? Yes, you can definitely force someone into sexual acts, whether or not you have the equipment. Okay. So, but that was their argument in the first trial. I forgot where it was. Mr. Conn says, did you say save child from his family? What I mean is a son. Yes, me. What did he say? Save a child from a family. I didn't even think of police officers as kind, warm people who were going to go in there and save a child from a family. Yeah, he's still a kid. Like, he's 18, almost 19. His parents do everything for him. So it's not like he's self-sufficient or even knows that he has the ability, like has the autonomy to get up and go to the police station. So questioning him as to why you didn't do this is stupid and irrelevant. He's been in a lifelong abusive situation, and his abuser is now pissed off. He's in a bad situation no matter what he does. So no response is going to be good. No, nothing he does is going to be good enough, according to the prosecutor here, because Erik's thinking and acting out of, and Lyle too, they're acting out of fear. They're acting out of a place of fear. It's that fight or flight. They're in that flight moment. So all of this is just so stupid to me, this line of questioning. Um, yeah, he meant son, he meant me. And is that the image you are trying to convey by using that word? Says the witness, if I may finish the question, that you were like a helpless child who couldn't go to the police station unless he knew the police officers there on a first name basis? I'm just using the words the way I viewed myself, how I saw myself, and how I saw my situation. Are you trying to persuade this jury? Aren't you, Mr. Menendez? Objection. Mr. Conn says, by choosing your words carefully. Objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. Overruled. No, says the witness. Okay, so you thought if you went to the police station then and you reported this to the police, then the police would just take a report and wouldn't do anything against your father. Is that what you're saying? Objection, speculation, and the witness has already stated his state of mind. It's been asked and answered. Court says, well, if it is not speculation, it's asking for his state of mind. Overruled. The witness says, I didn't know. Mr. Conn says, okay, what did you think would happen if you went to the police and you told the police that your father was going to kill you? I thought that, objection, it's irrelevant. Overruled. It goes to the state of mind. I thought that they would eventually ask my father and he would say, don't be absurd, and my father would then kill me. That's a pretty good explanation that makes so much sense. If you do go to the police and the police go to your dad and they're just like, da 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 da, they don't take it seriously, your dad finds out you went to the police, you're dead. You're absolutely dead. You're either going to suffer tremendously or he's going to kill you. One or the other. I don't know. He's going to hurt you a lot or hurt you to the point of death. Mr. Conn says, and you felt that your father was very concerned about his image, weren't you? It was the most important thing in his life. I think that's like, yeah, it was everything to him. Okay. And you felt that if you went to the police station and you reported to the police that Jose Menendez of 722 Elm Street was planning on killing you, that your father would have no problem with going ahead and killing you, even though you had already tipped off the police that your father would be the most likely suspect in the event of your death. Is that what you're saying? Objection, compound. It calls for speculation. The witness says, I assume you're also asking me if I would tell. The court says, wait, there is an objection here. What is your objection? Calls for speculation as to what Mr. Menendez would do, and it's also compound. Court says, well, again, it's not speculation in that it asks the witness to express his state of mind at the time that these incidents occurred, but as phrased, it's argumentative. Okay, says Mr. Conn. Do you feel at the time, Mr. Menendez, that your father would kill you even after you went to the police and identified him as the most likely suspect in the event of your death? If I went to the police and told them that, I'd have to tell them about the sex between Dad and I, which means that there would be, and now I am really assuming because I didn't go through it this far in my mind. I just knew that my father would much more gladly fight a murder trial than he would a child molestation trial. It just wasn't going to happen. So you carefully thought about this option, didn't you? I didn't. Objection, misstates his testimony. Overruled, says the court. It lingered in my mind for probably seconds before I brushed it off and said that's an impossibility. Well, Mr. Menendez, you weren't concerned about your safety, is that correct? Yes. And are you telling us that as far as the option of going to the police is concerned, that is an option that you considered only for seconds and then you brushed it out of your mind? There are thoughts that evolved over years as I thought about it when I was 13 and 14 and 15 and thought about the police then and thought about it when I am 17. And by this time, I just did not consider it a possibility. At that point, you don't think anybody's going to help you. Mr. Menendez, would you say that you, like every other person, developed from the age of 13, 14, and 15 and becomes a different person by the age of 18 years old? Argumentative. The witness says no. Objection sustained. The answer is stricken. Did you feel that you, as a person, had developed from the age of 13 until the time that you were 18 years old? Objection vague with respect to develop. Overruled. Certainly, I developed physically. My view of my father never changed. So you are saying that, are you are you trying to tell the jury that at 18 years old, you were somehow trapped in this mind of a 13-year-old? Objection, it's argumentative as phrased. It's actually true. And doctors, expert witnesses have already testified to that basically his maturity level, their emotional IQ at that point is like an eighth grader, fourth grader, whatever. I can't remember what it was. They both, Lyle's was a little bit better, but they were still, under high school level of maturity, emotional maturity. So that also in like their logic, the way that they think, the way, their brains didn't develop in a healthy environment. So they're trapped in this like loop of how to think because the ways that Jose made him think. Mr. Levin says objection sustained, objection sustained. Mr. Conn says, when you say that your image of your father never changed from the time you were 13 years old, are you saying that you did not see your father as an 18-year-old would see his father, but you saw your father as a 13-year-old would see your father? Objection calls for speculation and is argumentative as to what other 18-year-olds felt. The court says he's talking about this witness and how this witness felt. Overruled. The witness says, I was 18 and I saw my father as an 18-year-old who had lived my life, and my perception of my father when I was 13 and I first thought about the fact that I was going to die never changed. And there was nothing to change it, and it just never did. Mr. Conn asks, so are you saying that when you were considering the various options to getting around shooting your parents, you considered the option of going to the police only for a few moments because that is something that you had previously considered when you were 13 years old? No. There wasn't a gap between when I was 13 and 18. I was not trying to say that. I am saying that over my life, these were thoughts that were constantly evolving in my head. And I didn't just say, I'm going to get guns to shoot my parents. That's not why I went and got them. So you're saying that you didn't think about going to the police just when you were 13 years old, but you thought about it when you were 14 years old. Is that correct? I'm sure that I did. And you thought about it when you were 15 years old. I don't remember. Do you think about it when you were 16? I thought about it when I was 17, not 16. I don't remember if I did. Do you remember thinking about it when you were 17 but not 16? Why is that? Because I remember after my father put the knife in to my throat, I thought about things and I said, I can't wait to get to college. I'm going to college. I can hold on to college. It's 8 months away. That knife to his throat was, I'm sure, a terrifying experience for him and made the thought of Jose killing him very real. My question is going to the police. Did you think about going to the police when you were 17 years old? Yes. Did you think about it when you were 16? I may have. What I'm saying is I can't say that I did. Okay, but now at the age of 18, you have a new reason to go to the police, and that is that you now believe that your father was going to kill you. Is that correct? I believed that it was a strong possibility. Okay, and this gave you a brand new reason to consider going to the police. Is that correct? I suppose so. Okay, and would you say that because it gave you a brand new reason to go to the police, that you considered going to the police for more than a few seconds? No. You only considered it for a few seconds. Yes. All of his answers are lining up to me for someone who has been abused his whole life. You don't question it, you're just defeated and you're not going to go seek help because anytime you ever have, it's backfired in your face. And if Jose were to find out, you'd really be screwed. And a person who has been abused is going to answer the way that Erik is answering. Like, yep, nope, yeah, I was going to do it. It's not even crazy. Nope. I didn't even think about it for more than a few seconds. And then you immediately dismiss that option. Is that correct? Yes. Well, did your brother Lyle Menendez say to you, why don't we just go to the police? That's pretty much what he said. And what did you say? I said, that's impossible. What are they going to do? Something along those lines. A few words were exchanged, and he agreed too that the police, we were much better off running away, not going to anyone than going to the police. This is not something that you discussed further with your brother Lyle Menendez. I did. I am talking about going to the police. Did you discuss that issue further with your brother? No. That was the end of it? Just like that? Yes. And your brother, Lyle Menendez, was 21 years old at the time. Is that correct? Yes. And you didn't, neither one of you discussed how would your father take on the police force. We didn't think he would have to take on the police force. Why not? You're assuming the police force are going to back us instead of my father. But you didn't assume that. Well, I am here in trial, and the question was, did you assume that? Objection, Your Honor. He's trying to answer the question. The court says, go ahead. And thinking back 6 years, says the witness, to how I viewed the police, my thought is that they would have had the same reaction as you are having now. This is ridiculous. What are you saying? Your father is a powerful, respectable businessman and from Beverly Hills. So he thinks the police would take his dad's side. Did you feel that you could tell the police what was going on and then simply move away from your home? No. Did you discuss that option specifically with your brother Lyle? I don't remember if I discussed it with Lyle, but I knew that if I went to the police, as soon as I went to the station, there was going to be a tragic accident and I was going to die. There was no question in my mind. So you had no further conversation with your brother, Lyle Menendez, concerning going to the police other than you just told us here today. Is that correct? I don't remember any further discussions about going to the police. I remember discussions about of him wanting to get away, even on Friday. I don't remember specifically going to the police. Now, you regard your father as a brilliant man, is that correct? He was. Did you believe that night that your father would be aware of the fact that you could have left the guest house at any time and gone to the police and reported him to the police? Probably. Did you also appreciate the fact that your father, being a brilliant man, recognized that you didn't even have to leave the house? You just could have dialed 911 and got the police on the line. I'm not sure I thought of that specifically. But you believe that your father realized that there was nothing stopping you from going to the police Thursday night? Is that correct? You're asking me if I believed that I realized. I don't even remember thinking these things, but I am thinking that I may have thought them. And you believed your father to be a very aggressive man. Is that correct? Determined. And bearing in mind that you had an opportunity to go to the police that night and that your father would recognize that possibility, did it occur to you that if your father was going to do something to you at all, it would be that night before you had an opportunity to get the police station? I wasn't sure. I felt that my father was going to kill me in a way where he wasn't going to get arrested for my murder, that he was going to do it and not get caught. I didn't know how he was going to do it. I just knew that he would do it anything to keep the secret from coming out. My question to you is, did it occur to you that your father, being a brilliant man, would recognize that that night had an opportunity to go to the police and that if you were to be stopped, that was the best time to stop you before you had a chance to go to the police? I don't specifically remember thinking those things. It didn't occur to you that your father would want to stop you from going to the police? Well, that occurred to me. And you knew that you could get out of the guest house and go to the police station and be there in a few minutes. I knew that. And you knew that your father knew that, didn't you? Probably. And you are saying it never occurred to you that your father, recognizing that possibility, would come over and kill you right then and there. I thought that there was a strong possibility he might. What I am saying is the night happened in my mind as a big rush together of things and words, and sometimes arguments, and sometimes I would get angry with Lyle because he wasn't realizing something, and he would get angry at me. And it was a panic situation. We weren't sitting down having a conversation. We were thinking, whether rationally or irrationally, all different types of things. And I don't remember all of the things that came up in the conversation, which were accepted or dismissed. You weren't sitting down and having a conversation with your brother about this? No. What were you doing? Standing up and talking? Lyle was. I remember him standing up. I remember him looking out through the windows over the porch, and I was in the chair and I was crying at the beginning of the conversation. At other times, I don't remember specifically standing up, but I remember heated arguments. How long did you continue to talk that night with your brother about the possibility of your parents killing you? We talked that night for what I remember was a long time into the night after we had decided to get guns. Well, my question is, sorry, how long did you talk to your brother that night about the possibility of killing your parents? That was early on an accepted fact. Oh, wait, no, not about killing the parents, about them killing you. I'm sorry, misstated or I misworded that. Let me read it again. The question is, how long did you talk to your brother that night about the possibility of your parents killing you? That was an early on an accepted fact. It wasn't something that we debated. So it just was something that they knew. So you're saying that it became an accepted fact, and once it became an accepted fact, then you no longer considered that issue of whether or not your parents were going to kill you. You then simply talked about how you were going to respond to the danger. Is that what you're telling us? Yes. So you're telling us that you didn't continue to question throughout the night, are they really going to do this? I'm sure we did. I'm sure we did. So it didn't become an accepted fact, did it? It became an accepted fact, but the disbelief of the situation was present always. How long did you continue to talk to your brother that night? I remember it being into the night, whether it was an hour and a half, or longer, or 40 minutes. I don't know. Somewhere between 40 minutes and an hour and a half. I talked to him throughout the night. Throughout the night? I remember it being into the night. I would be guessing at the estimates. I know it was after midnight when I got to the guest house. I know that I got to bed early in the morning. At some point, Lyle went back to his room and I stayed out there in the living room. This estimate of 40 minutes to an hour and a half related to what? To me, knowing that we talked for a long time. This estimate of 40 minutes to an hour and a half related to your estimate concerning talking about what? Just talking to Lyle in general. I remember at one point we were discussing why all these things were happening in the family. I remember asking him a lot about why I felt mom knew and how she could know. I knew that that was something that was weighing on me because that was something that never seemed possible. And so we discussed all kinds of things, were jabbered back and forth. Mr. Menendez, what I am asking you is, what is your estimate of how long you talked to your brother that night? I don't think I can give you a best estimate. You can't say 40 minutes or 4 hours. I know it wasn't 4 hours. Then how long was it? Give us a range. Anywhere from up to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, but I am really guessing. Okay, now during that hour and a half, did either you say to your brother Lyle, or did he say to you, given the fact that our father is such an aggressive man, and given the fact that he would probably want to stop us before we can get to the police, he's probably going to come over tonight and kill us? We thought it was a possibility he would do it that night. We didn't know how. We knew my father wasn't just going to come in and stab us and try to clean it up and pretend that nothing happened and that Lyle and I disappeared. We really didn't know what was going to happen, and it was that uncertainty which was very scary. I honestly think, and I've said this multiple times, with Jose's money and connections and his ability to be ruthless, I think he could have made his kids disappear and make it into himself and Kitty being the victims of this horrific kidnapping or something, maybe wanting their money. Maybe, they could have totally faked some kind of ransom, kidnapping, something or other. And then we just never see them again, the brothers. It could have easily, in my opinion, I think he could have had that happen if he wanted to. Just my opinion. All right. So you knew that your father was not going to come in and stab you and pretend that you disappeared. Is that what you said? What I'm saying is certain things I am sure seemed more probable than others. And you ruled out the possibility that your father would come in and stab you and pretend that you disappeared. No, I didn't. I didn't. I didn't mean to say that I ruled it out. I thought it was unlikely. Why did you feel that particular mode of killing was unlikely, Mr. Menendez? Because I didn't think he would just shoot us or kill us inside a house where he would be. I assumed that he would want us to have disappeared or died accidentally or something like that because it would. It certainly did not occur to me that my father would shoot us and get arrested that night for it. It's not something my father would have done. Well, did you think your father would be smart enough to shoot you or kill you in a way that wouldn't result in his arrest that night? Right, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. So didn't you think that that perhaps he could have shot you or killed you or stabbed you that night and done it in a way that he could have gotten away with it? In the middle of Beverly Hills? I cannot imagine that he would just do that. Maybe stab us. I don't know. These thoughts were flashes in my mind. Now, when you say maybe stab us, are you telling us that at the time that Thursday night you recognized the possibility that your father might have stabbed you that night? I don't know if I recognized the possibility. I thought it unlikely that that would happen that night. I don't remember if I recognized the possibility. I probably did. Why did you think it was unlikely that it would happen that night? I didn't think it was, I said it was unlikely that it would happen in that fashion, is what I meant. Do you think it was possible it could happen that night? Yes, I thought it could very well happen that night. And because it might very well have happened that night, you had an inclination to leave? Lyle had an inclination to leave. I thought it was an impossibility. Why are we asking the same questions over and over again? You're just getting the same answers. You're getting better answers from the defense for their position. So digging or continually picking on these same whoops, my uh infuser turned off. Picking on these same little things over and over again is just kind of like beating a dead horse. And it's actually, I think, giving the defense more time to explain themselves. Now, you said that you didn't think that your father would just shoot you in the middle of Beverly Hills. Is that correct? I didn't know what he would do. On August the 20th of 1989, didn't you conclude that your father was just going to shoot you in the middle of Beverly Hills? At that point, I did, yes. But are you telling us back on Thursday, a few days earlier, you ruled that out as a reasonable possibility? I On Thursday, it wasn't a heated blow up. I was just going to say that. The situation was different. They didn't just have a confrontation. There was one with the mother, but not with Jose. He says on Thursday it wasn't a heated blow up. I know that he had gotten calls from my mother the night before, but he didn't know really what the situation was. On Sunday, it was 3 days later, he knew very well what the situation was, and things were very much different. I thought that the guns he had in the house on Thursday night were rifles, but by Sunday, it was a different story. What I'm saying is, on Thursday, did you rule out the possibility of your father shooting you in the middle of Beverly Hills as being unlikely? I did rule it out or did think it was unlikely. Wait, did I rule it out or did I think it was unlikely? Did you think it was unlikely? I think so. Why did you think that it was unlikely that your father would shoot you in Beverly Hills Thursday night? I just did. I mean, I couldn't imagine him bringing a rifle over to the guest house, shooting me, and having everyone hear it, and him getting arrested at the time. It was just unreasonable to think that. That's why they thought at the fishing trip, the fishing boat thing, the shark fishing trip that they went on, it could have easily been a place for Jose to get rid of them easily. So for them to suspect that Jose might have wanted to harm them, especially during that outing, makes a lot of sense. He could have gotten rid of their bodies and been like, they fell overboard. We can't find them. And then not really look for them, you know? So anyways, next question. So on Sunday night, when your mother and father went into the den and closed the doors behind them, did you say to your brother Lyle, what's to worry about? We're in the middle of Beverly Hills. It's unlikely that our dad is going to come out of there with a rifle and shoot us to death. Sunday night at the top of the stairs, I was panicking. I wasn't thinking very calmly about these things like we are here. I was just thinking that Dad had sealed himself off in the room. He said he was going to be up in my room in a minute. I was losing control of my body in fear that he would come up to my room and I would have to believe that there was no way I was going to let that happen, and I was terrified. I didn't weigh all these options. What I'm asking you is, on Sunday night, did you have the same belief that you had on Thursday night that a shooting in the middle of Beverly Hills would be a very unlikely thing for your father to do? By Sunday night, it was many days later, and whether my father at this point has a gun, had a silencer, I don't know. I didn't I didn't weigh it like I did on Thursday. I didn't have the time. Thursday, it came into my mind, it would leave. I would get scared. It would come into my mind, it would leave. On Sunday, it was a moment. It was seconds. It was very different. It's a really good way. I think he describes fear and shock and the moment being so catastrophic to their livelihood that they really did think that they were going to die in the moment. So getting back to Thursday, did either you or your brother say to each other Thursday night that probably your father is going to give you a grace period to go to the police if you wanted to? No, I didn't say that to my brother. And did you say to your brother, or did he say to you, it's unlikely that someone as aggressive as our father is requesting to give us a grace period to go to the police? I don't remember using those words. Well, was that concept expressed in any way that if your father was going to kill you, it would be more likely than not that he was going to do it that night before you had a chance to go to the police? I'm not saying for certain that my father thought we were going to go to the police. My father had taught me all my life. Mr. Conn says, I would object, non-responsive. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. He is answering the question. It's state of mind. The court says, well, let's have the question read back. The record was read. The court says, why don't you answer the question? The witness says, let's read the question back. Um, Was that concept expressed in any way that if your father was going to kill you, it would be more likely than not he was going to do it that night before you had a chance to go to the police? The witness says, what I was saying is my father had, I don't think in my mind, he would either think that we would run away first and go to the police. Objection, non-responsive, overruled. The witness says, but I am looking at the situation 6 years later, and I've had 6 years to think about it. At that time, I don't think I was putting them together in terms of logical order and weighing what was the greatest possibility and the percentage of this happening versus this. It just wasn't happening like that. So, what you're telling us is the concept of your father doing it that night or not at all was never related either to your brother or from your brother to you. Is that correct? I'm saying that I am sure that it was. Oh, it was? Yes. And what and who related that concept to you? To who? I don't remember who brought it up first. And what was the response to that concept once it was raised? I know that the first thing that was done, even before, no, I remember saying we're going to die, we're going to die, crying on the couch, and then Lyle locking the door. So I may have brought it up first, and I remember the door was immediately locked. My question to you is once you and your brother began to discuss this concept of if our father is going to kill us, he's probably going to do it right now before we go to the police. Once that concept was raised, how did you deal with that concept? What was discussed concerning that concept? I don't remember. And is that because it was never raised, Mr. Menendez? It was definitely raised. It's very logical for me to remember the logic and the sequence of words and how things were deliberated. Uh, it's difficult for him to remember. I just can't do it. Now, you told us yesterday that when you heard in May of 1989 that your father was going to drown you or drown you. Oh my God, that looked like drown to me. I read it so fast. Let me back up. You told us yesterday that when you heard in May of 1989 that your father was going to disown you, you concluded that he was going to kill you back in May of 1989. Is that correct? My father never said, you're disowned. I'm going to disown you. If you don't do this, I am going to disown you. It was brought up by my mother one time and only one time, and I remember being scared. What does he mean by that? Obviously, he's not going to kick me out of the house. The thoughts of death came to my mind. It never went any further than that because my complete attitude changed. At the time, I wanted to keep things private because I wanted to have some sense of myself, and I changed. I started revealing things to my dad again. So he never said that to me. Mr. Menendez, my question to you was, didn't you testify that when you heard that your father was going to disown you, you concluded back in May of 1989 that he was going to kill you? I concluded that he might kill me if he did disown me. My mom said that my father was thinking about it because I was keeping too many things private from him. You previously testified, didn't you, that by disown, you believed that to mean that he was going to kill you? Is that correct? Objection, that misstates his testimony. Overruled. Essentially, that's what I was thinking. I didn't say, I'm going to dad. Dad never said, you're disowned. He never said anything close to that. He never even discussed it. It was one time that was brought up by my mom. I'm going to object as non-responsive, Your Honor, says Mr. Conn. The court says no, he is responsive. Yeah, he answered the question. It's just not the answer you want. So there you have it. The witness said, and I was thinking, could this mean death? And I thought it very well may be. And I changed my attitude, and I did. Mr. Conn says, you concluded not only may it very well mean death, you concluded that disown meant he was going to kill you, and that's what you previously testified to, correct? What I previously testified to. I am telling you what I was thinking at the time. Okay, the question is, did you or did you not previously testify to that? If I testified to it, I testified trying to convey exactly that feeling. It was the feeling that I had. You acknowledge that you previously testified that when you heard that your father was going to disown you in May, you understood that to mean that your father was going to kill you? I think I used the word it meant death. Do you remember being asked? Okay. Question. Okay. Now what? Mr. Levin says, Objection, Your Honor. We would ask for the page and line designation first. Court says, yes. What page? Mr. Conn says, this is page 17147. Court says, and what volume is that? Volume 103. May we have a moment, says Mr. Levin. Line, says Ms. Abramson. What line are you referring to, says the court. Mr. Conn says, yes, line 7 through 9. Ms. Abramson says, Objection, Your Honor. It should go to 14. Mr. Gessler says, what was the page? He's still behind. Ms. Abramson says, 17147. Does the court have it? Court says, did you propose to go to line 14? Mr. Conn says, I'll go to 14. Okay, says the court. Ms. Abramson says, then we would object that it's not impeachment. Court says, I'm sorry, Mr. Levin? Mr. Levin says, I would ask the court to look at it. The objection is it's not impeaching. He has testified precisely. The court says, I will look at it if someone will give it to me. I don't have the volumes up here. Ms. Abramson says, I'm sorry, Judge. She brings it over, I guess. He says, all right, the objection is overruled. Mr. Conn says, do you remember being asked the following questions and giving the following answers? Question, okay, now what did disown mean to you? Answer, that he was going to kill me. Question, and why would disowning you, cutting you off altogether, mean death? Answer, well, it was just my impression of what it meant because he clearly wasn't going to disown me. Is that correct? The witness says, may I see it? The court says, and this was testimony from the first trial, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, says Mr. Conn. The witness says, oh, the first trial or this trial? Mr. Conn says, from the first trial. And the witness answers, and the question was why? And I said, because obviously things were going on between him and I. He was never going to let me leave the house with that information. That's what I'm saying. So you concluded that your father was going to kill you back in May of 1989 for something as trivial as not reporting your tennis to him. Is that correct? 1, I didn't conclude that my dad was absolutely going to kill me. I believed that may very well be what he means. He never said it to me. And you're right. I was surprised when my mom said it to me because I was trying to keep more things private in my life. My dad is going to do the drastic thing and disown me. But it didn't completely shock me because my dad did things in drastic ways. If he was unhappy, you're disowned. So you believed your father was drastic enough so that if you didn't report all of your tennis to your father, he was going to kill you for that, correct? My mother said because I wasn't reporting things to my father, he was going to disown me. My interpretation of disown, I was afraid it might mean death. Right. Yes? Right. Now, if you thought your father was going to disown you, kill you for something as trivial as not reporting your tennis to him back in May of '89, on that Thursday night when you were in the guest house with Lyle Menendez, did you conclude that for something as serious as revealing to your brother the secret between yourself and your father, that he was definitely going to kill you? I knew that there was no way he was going to let the secret out. That I knew for sure. The jumps of logic that you're making from disown and from my father doing it over trivial reason, that's information I found out from my mother. I didn't conclude it on my own. I didn't bridge those two in the guest house on Sunday. The secret was obvious. Before May, I knew that my dad had threatened, maybe even over 100 times, to kill me if that happened. It was nothing shocking to me. Mr. Menendez, what is the jump in logic that I am making in my questioning to you? It seems that you are putting together he is going to kill me because I am trying to reveal things privately. I thought that was what disowned meant. I don't think that my father was saying to himself, he is not telling me enough tennis, I'm going to kill him. I think he was just saying these things to my mom. I'm going to disown him, or I'm really upset that he is keeping these things private, or he is trying to keep things private for me. I don't think those things were going through my father's head. I was looking at it down the road. What does disown mean? Could it mean death? It very well have meant death. Once again, what is the leap in logic I am making, Mr. Menendez, in my questioning to you? I thought I just explained it. Well, why don't you try again? What is the leap in logic that I'm making in my questioning? Objection, it's argumentative, and he already answered it. The court says, as to the first phrase, comments of counsel sustained, but the question may be re-asked. Do you understand the question? Yes. Okay, says the court. The witness says, you're saying that my father was thinking that because I am keeping something as trivial as tennis private from him, which I don't think he thought was trivial anyway, that he was thinking that my father was thinking I am going to kill him. That's not what I'm saying. Mr. Conn says, so you didn't believe that your father was thinking of killing you back in May of '89? No, what I am saying is I thought that if he would disown me, that I couldn't see any other way that he would disown me and kick me out of the house. I just couldn't imagine it to be that. If that was actually what he was thinking, he was probably then going to kill me. So then, weren't you thinking, Mr. Menendez, that if you didn't shape up as far as your reporting tennis to him is concerned, that he was going to disown you, and since he couldn't just kick you out on the street, then therefore he was going to kill you? If my father said he was going to disown me, it probably would be something a lot more serious. Mr. Menendez, regardless of whether or not you heard that straight from your father, this is something you heard from your mother, correct? Correct. I am asking you about your state of mind after you heard this from your mother. Do you understand that? Yes. And I'm asking you after you heard your mother say that your father said he would disown you if you didn't report your tennis to him, did you conclude as a result of that that your father would kick you out, and by that you thought it meant that he was going to kill you? Court says, all right, we'll take a recess. What? He didn't even answer the question. He just cut him off after a question. Court says, all right, let's take our recess and we'll resume in 10 minutes to the hour. That's weird. It's right in the middle of a question. He crossed off. That's weird. Okay, we're back on the record. Court says, okay, let's get the jury out. They enter. Court says the jury's back in. We'll continue with cross-examination. Mr. Conn says, thank you. Now, Mr. Menendez, when you and your brother concluded on Thursday night that your parents were going to kill you, did you then begin to discuss with your brother how you thought your parents would go about killing you so that they could get away with it? Most likely, I'm sure we did. Yes. What conclusions did you reach concerning how your parents would go about killing you and getting away with it? We didn't know. Well, did you turn to your brother, or did your brother turn to you and say, this is ridiculous, our parents can't kill us and get away with it? No, definitely not. So you absolutely concluded that your parents could kill you and get away with it? My father could do anything. You concluded he had millions of dollars, he could do anything. I didn't think that it was something that he couldn't do. No. So did you reach any conclusions concerning when it would be done or how it would be done? I thought it might be done that night. Lyle thought it was more likely that it wouldn't be done that night and that it would be done when my father had a chance to analyze what was going on. I thought it might be done that night. We just weren't sure. Did you reach any conclusions concerning the meaning by which your father would use to kill you? He could use any means. Did you reach any conclusions concerning whether both your mother and your father would kill you together, or whether just one and then would kill you? Whether just one of them would kill you? We believed that when we were in the guest house that they were in the main house talking about it. I know that my mother was either medicated or drunk at the time, and she was already angry, and I believe that they were talking about what to do. I don't know if I don't remember any specific idea of that we pinpointed to how we thought it would be done. Did you reach any conclusions concerning whether your father would do it personally or get someone to do it for him? Lyle thought that Dad would not get other people involved. What was your thoughts on that subject? I didn't know my father well enough to know. All I know is that I had fear of him. I didn't know whether he would hire people or not. Lyle thought that he would do it more likely personally than get other people involved, but I didn't know. Did you reach any conclusions concerning where it was likely to happen? No. Did you reach any conclusions concerning what time of day it was likely to happen? No. Did you have any discussions concerning where it was likely to happen? I don't remember. Did you have any discussions concerning the time of day it was likely to happen? I don't remember. Did you have any discussions concerning whether it would be likely to happen when the two of you were together or separate? I remember believing that it would happen when we were together. I don't know. I don't know how I came up to that or how I came to that conclusion. I know that Lila and I were discussing such things. I don't remember how I arrived at that conclusion. So, to minimize the possibility that it would occur while you were together, did you then decide to separate and go your separate ways? We did that weekend. I remember on Sunday specifically, we stayed away. Well, did you do that at night? I don't believe that we felt, once I told Lyle that we couldn't get away, I don't think that Lyle thought it was a good idea to go to the car and drive off. That would have been a bad idea. We just stayed. Objection, non-responsive, calls for speculation, says Mr. Conn. The court says overruled, the answer will stand. He keeps trying to strike Eric's answers when they're fine. They're perfectly fine. But it just doesn't say what he wants it to say. So he wants to argue that it should be stricken from the record. Next question, Mr. Conn says, so you decided that you were not going to separate that night. Is that correct? Right. Even though, in your view, that would increase the likelihood of you two being killed? I don't know that I put it two and two together that night. The only things you put together that night was that your parents were going to kill you. I put a lot of other things together that night. I stayed up late thinking about it after Lyle had left the room. Where did you stay that night specifically? On the couch. Where did your brother stay? In his room. Now, before your brother went to sleep in his room, you discussed the possibility of going to another city or going to another country? I remember Lyle wanting to get away. Probably said, let's leave the state, let's leave the country. I don't remember. I completely dismissed it. I told him that it was an impossibility, that it could not happen. How long did you discuss with your brother the possibility of you and he going to another city or going to another country? You mean in general, just leaving and running away? Yes, just leaving. I know that night, I know on the way back from San Diego, I believe he brought it up again. I'm talking about that night. That night, it was generally discussed. So you discussed that possibility through the night of going to another city or to another country. I dismissed it right away. It was something that Lyle wanted to do, though. So once you dismissed it right away, there was no further discussion concerning going to another city or going to another country. Is that what you're saying? No. What are you saying? I'm saying that I believe Lyle continually brought it up. We can get out of here. Let's just go. And I had already dismissed it, but I can't remember specifically that happening. I just remember a lot of arguments, heated talking back and forth, a lot of anxiety. And in what way would Lyle continually bring it up throughout the evening? I would be guessing at the words. But essentially, what was the content of the way in which he would bring it up? That we should get out of there. And did he give you specifics concerning why it was feasible to go to another city or to another country? Probably because he thought it was better to try to make it on the run than to take a chance of dad killing us right then. I'm not asking you what he thought. I'm asking you what he said concerning the specifics of why it would be feasible to go to another city or country. I don't remember the specifics. You don't remember any specifics concerning the conversation between you and your brother concerning the feasibility of you going to another city? I don't remember the word city, country. I remember him saying, "Let's get out of here. Let's go. We can get away." And me saying, "It's impossible. It can't happen. We'll never get away. He'll find us. He'll kill us." I don't remember him saying, "Let's go to Baltimore" or "Let's go to Spain." I don't remember those things. Do you remember any other specific conversation in which you discussed the feasibility of going to another place? Feasibility? No. Do you remember any other discussions concerning the possibility of going to another place? I believe we discussed it on Friday. I'm talking about Thursday night. Any other discussions? It was discussed then. He may have continually brought it up. I just don't remember the specifics enough. So you cannot recall any specific discussions other than what you just told us about on Thursday night concerning the possibility of going to another location to live. At this time, I cannot. Okay. Then tell us any specific conversations you had for the remainder of that weekend concerning the possibility of going to another location to live. I don't believe that we discussed, or I don't remember him discussing the possibility of going to another location to live. I remember him bringing up, let's get away, let's leave. I don't remember him saying that we can just move to a specific city or state or country. I'm not asking you whether a specific location was mentioned. I'm asking you whether you can remember any specific conversations that you had with your brother in which you seriously considered and discussed that opinion. Coming home from San Diego, my brother said to me that the guns are useless unless I could use them. He asked me if I could really use them against my mom, and I said I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And he said, "Well, you better think about that because if you can't, they're useless. We better get out of here. And it's pointless because we're going to die either way at this point." And he wanted me to go, and I said I couldn't. Did you understand the question I just asked you? Objection, argumentative. It was, says the witness, overruled, says the court. I thought that was answering the question. Let me try one more time. What a rude jackass. Can you remember any specific discussion that you had with your brother Lyle at any time that weekend in which you seriously considered and discussed the possibility of moving to another location to get away from your parents? Maybe I'm confusing what you mean by another location. I thought I answered your question. We never. I don't remember him bringing up. I remember us discussing or him saying, "What about the relatives?" and dismissing that possibility. I don't, other than that, I don't specifically remember any specific place that we had or that he said we could move to get away to hide from dad. You understand that I'm not asking you about a specific place. I'm asking you what conversations, Mr. Menendez, did you have with your brother Lyle in which you seriously entertained and considered the possibility of going to another location to live? What do you mean by seriously entertain the possibility? That you discussed, that this was an issue which you actually discussed rather than ignoring the option of going to another location. On Friday, coming home from the gun store in San Diego. What was discussed concerning the possibility of going to another location to live? The fact that if I couldn't use this gun, we were going to very likely could die there, so we might as well take a chance in running. Did either you or your brother say any time, how is my father going to find us if we go to St. Louis as opposed to Minneapolis? I don't remember those words, but I know that it just was my thought that it was just my father was going to find us. I can't believe that anyone could seriously think that my father would not be able to find us and that I would be able to hide from him while he was hunting me for the rest of my life. How could that be? Are you saying, Mr. Menendez, that at no time did either you or your brother say, if we're going to go to another city, San Diego or Des Moines, how would my father go about finding us? I don't remember that happening, but I certainly knew how he would go about it. How would he go about doing that, Mr. Menendez? He had millions of dollars. He would have private investigators. Anytime my name came up on a computer or credit card or bank or a school or anything, he would find me immediately. So I would have obviously have to change my name, somehow do it in a way that he couldn't find out and literally hide out, knowing that every day he was searching for me and hunting for me. And I just did not believe, nor was I realistic to think that that could actually happen. So you didn't assume that if you went to another place and tried to get away from your parents that you would necessarily have to keep your true name, did you? No. So did you say, let's talk about this, Lyle. Before we go out and buy guns to kill our parents, let's talk about the possibility of changing our identities and using different names. Did you talk about that? We didn't go out. Objection, it's argumentative, says Mr. Levin. The court says, objection sustained to the form of the question. The answer is stricken. Mr. Conn says, before you went to buy shotguns on Friday, did you say to your brother Lyle, before we buy the shotguns, let's talk about the possibility of changing our names and getting away from our parents so that we don't get into a situation where someone shoots someone? I dismissed it. I thought it was an impossibility. I did not discuss it. You didn't feel that that was something even worth discussing, Mr. Menendez? I thought it was a possibility. Or I thought it was impossible, sorry. I thought it was impossible. And your brother Lyle Menendez at no time raised that as a possibility, is that correct? No. That's what I'm saying, is that he may very well have. And I said, it's ridiculous. It's not possible, but I can't tell you the words that he used. I can't even tell you the time that he said it because I don't specifically remember, but that's the things that he was thinking. Do you recall Lyle Menendez raising the changing the names as a possibility for avoiding your parents? Is that correct? Right. Do you recall any other options that you discussed or means by which you could avoid your parents if you were to move to a different location? I did not discuss them. If he brought them up, I dismissed it. So I don't know. So you never at any time discussed the issue of how would your father go about finding you. Is that correct? Right. Would you feel, Mr. Menendez, that before you would purchase shotguns to possibly use against your own parents, that at least that was something worth discussing? Objection. It's argumentative. Court says, are you asking, does he think now or did he think then? At the time, says Mr. Conn. Court says, well, he's answered the question as to whether he did or didn't discuss it. So, objection sustained. Mr. Conn says, now, you had some experience using false identification, hadn't you? You mean in terms of getting into nightclubs, getting the ID to the guy? And I'm talking about false identification. Did you have any? I don't know what you mean by experience. Well, did you have any false identification back in August of '89? I had two separate identifications that were false. Okay. What type of identifications did you have? I had Donovan Goudreau's driver's license, which I kept in my wallet, and I had another identification with my picture on it, with the name of Richard Stevens on it. And the identification that you're referring to is a driver's license from DMV. Driver's license or identification. I no longer remember. I'm sorry. It's from the DMV. Uh, it's from the DMV. I don't remember if it's a driver's license anymore or identification card, one of the two. And it has your picture on it. It had your picture on it, but it had the name of Richard Stevens on it. Right. And this was issued to you by the Department of Motor Vehicles? Yes. And how did you go about getting a false identification like that? I had birth certificates, and many of the kids had different birth certificates. It generally was the way they got identification to get into nightclubs, and you went to the DMV with the birth certificate, and they just took your picture and gave you an identification card. I guess it was an identification card because I don't remember taking a driver's test for it, so it was really that simple. So first, you obtained a phony birth certificate, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, and then with a phony birth certificate, you went to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you presented yourself as Richard Stevens. Is that what you did? Yes. And did you sign anything under penalty of perjury or anything like that? I don't remember. Okay, but you also falsely represented yourself as being someone who you were not. Right. Were you acting at the time? No. So you said your name was Richard Stevens and you got this false identification. Is that correct? Right. What did you use that false ID for? I went out with a girlfriend and we wanted to get into a dancing club or something along those lines, and you needed to be 21. I had Timmy Anderson's before I had Donovan's. When I lost Timmy's and I had Donovan's, Timmy's was looking where it wasn't my picture. So the guy may say, well, this actually isn't you. Richard Stevens had my picture, so it worked every time. Let me see if I understand you. You had 3 pieces of false identification during this time period? No. How many pieces of false identification? 2. That is Goudreau and Stevens. Is that correct? Right. Now, you used to have some other phony identification, and that was Timmy Anderson, my cousin. And was that ID issued by another state? Yes, I guess it was, Illinois. And that didn't have your picture on it. No, it had Tim's. I'm sorry? It had Tim's. So what you would do is go around and pretend that you were Tim Anderson's at times. I wouldn't pretend I was anyone. I would show it so I could get in. Why is it that you stopped using Tim Anderson's identification and moved on to other types of false identification? I thought my wallet, and I kept Tim Anderson's ID in my wallet. I lost my wallet, and he kept Tim Anderson's D in my wallet. When I lost it, I lost the identification. And when you obtained Donovan Goudreau's identification card next, I got it in May. May of '89? Right. When did you get the Richard Stevens ID card? I don't know. I remember discussing it with my mother in '88 before I went down to the DMV and how exactly to do it. So I know it was probably up to a year before. Okay, and this now you said that before you went down to San Diego on Friday and you purchased these shotguns, thought that you had Donovan Goudreau's identification with you. Is that correct? I had it in my wallet. And you didn't have Richard Stevens' ID with you? I kept that in my room. And you didn't have your parents' driver's license at the time? Is that correct? Did I say parents? You didn't have your own driver's license at the time. Is that correct? I lost it with my wallet the spring before. Now, what month did you lose your license, your own driver's license? I don't remember. It was before May, sometime that spring. And now, between May and August, did you have a driver's license? My license was not suspended, but I had no need for a driver's license. It didn't do me any good except when I got pulled over for a ticket. So I didn't want to go down and wait in the line to get a new one. Did you know that you were supposed to have a driver's license in your possession when you drive a car? I knew that. You knew that since the time you lost your driver's license in May of 89? I don't know if I lost my license in May. It was before May, but I knew that you were supposed to have a driver's license, obviously, so that they can identify who the driver is. Right. And you just decided to go around driving between before May until August of 89 without a driver's license. This is the worst crime you have of him, that he drove around a car without a driver's license. Whatever. Essentially, my driver's license, being 18, wasn't good for anything except for identifying myself to police officers when I got pulled over for a ticket, and I didn't want to go down and wait in the line at DMV and get a new one, so I didn't bother. Mr. Menendez says, "Didn't you understand that that's the reason why you're supposed to carry driver's licenses, so that we can show identification to a police officer in case we're pulled over?" Objection, Your Honor, is argumentative. Overruled. The witness says that, or for credit cards, or if you're going to cash a check or something like that, I assume you need a driver's license, but I didn't have anything like that, and so it wasn't any use to me. And so because it was of no use to you, you decided to ignore the law that says that you're supposed to carry it. Is that correct? Yes. And you feel that is because you are above the law? No, you're right. I probably should have gone back to the DMV and waited to get a new driver's license. It was a hassle. Although I got my tickets, I tried not to, and all the officer was going to do would be ticket me for not having a driver's license, and it wasn't a big deal, so I didn't bother. So you felt that that was a law that was just not really a big deal and not even worth complying with, basically. Is that correct? Objection. Argumentative. Overruled. Okay, yes. Mr. Conn says, and the police officer even once told you to get a new driver's license. Is that correct? Objection calls for hearsay. Overruled. I remember I was stopped in July 7th, and I didn't have my license, and the police officer wrote me a ticket for not having a driver's license in July. Mr. Conn says, and still, it did not seem important to you. Is that correct? I was about to go on tour for 3 or 4 weeks in tennis. A driver's license just was not important to me at all. I didn't use it for anything. Like, these are your biggest crimes, is that he didn't renew his license. He didn't want to go sit at the DMV like a normal person. Nobody wants to go waste their time at the DMV. So that's your biggest crime, is that he decided to drive without a license. Okay. So ticket him and move on. I mean, yes, he killed his parents. I'm not even saying that he didn't, but we're overcharging him for this because they wanted the death penalty in this case, but the jury wouldn't do it. Um, Still, it did not seem important to you. Is that correct? I was about to go on tour for 3 weeks. Okay. It wasn't important to him. But you understood that people don't carry driver's licenses often because they have a use for it, but because they're required to. Is that correct? Objection. Argumentative. Overruled. Had I not lost my wallet, I would have had it. I lost it a few months before, and I just did not get around to getting a new one. Mr. Khan says, well, when you say you didn't get around to it, basically what you're telling us is that you saw no reason to get around to it. Is that correct? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, I object on 1101 and 352 at this point. Overruled, says the court. The witness says, You're right, I didn't. Now, you were also cited in August for speeding, were you not? August of 1989? Yes. When in August? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, may we see a document? Mr. Conn says, I believe it's a document that's been marked already. Mr. Conn says, it's counsel's document. Court says, it's the exhibit that we've been given or that we've been referring to. Mr. Conn says, while we're getting that, let me ask you this, Mr. Menendez. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, I would ask for a moment. Now there's a pause in the proceedings, and then Mr. Levin says, I'm ready, Your Honor. May I see that? Says Mr. Conn. Mr. Menendez says, Do you recall being pulled over any time after July by a police officer? Before my parents died? Yes. No. Do you recall anything happening to you on or after your parents were killed on August 25th of 89? This day of the memorial service? Was that the day of the memorial service? Yes, says Erik. Do you recall anything happening that day in regards to your driving or your driver's license? The memorial service is what sticks out in my mind. Well, let me show you this document and ask you if this refreshes your recollection, showing you 366, showing you a date of August the 25th of 1989. Is that an 8? Does that document refresh your recollection? No, it doesn't. Bailiff says, Judge, we need to take a short break for a juror. The court says, okay. So they take a break. Then the court says, okay, we'll resume. Mr. Conn, do you recall August 25th of 1984, whether you were cited by a police officer for any traffic violation that day? Mr. Levin says, Objection, Your Honor. This question being asked in bad faith, we ask to approach. Court says, okay, you're saying that's not reflected in that document? Mr. Levin says, absolutely. The court says, why don't you give me that document? There's a pause in the proceeding. The court says, all right, I'll see counsel. And the following proceedings were held outside the presence of the jury. So we're going to have we'll call it a sidebar, I guess, arguments. The court says, okay, outside the jury's hearing, what is it that you're objecting to? Mr. Levin says, well, first of all, it's the document that the prosecutor voiced vigorous objections to where we couldn't bring it in. Secondly, that the incident that he's referring to on the second page of that exhibit is not a citation, it's a failure to appear on an earlier incident. Ms. Abramson says that's what it appears like because it's listed differently than the ones on the 209 208. Okay, something happens and now we're back on the record. I don't know. Court says, okay, we have everybody present and we're ready to resume with the trial. We'll have the jury out, please. The jury enters the courtroom and the following proceedings are held. Court says, okay, we have everybody back and we will continue with the cross-examination. Mr. Conn says, thank you. All right, Mr. Conn says, Mr. Menendez, I believe that at the time that we broke, we were discussing your belief that your mother had magical powers. No, they weren't. Is this a belief that you had when you were 17 and 18? Essentially, yes. And what specific powers did you believe that your mother had? She had the ability to know things which were inconceivable for me, at least for her to know. Such as a girl that I liked, she would ask me, who's so and so? And I had never mentioned the girl's name. She would know different things about my life, which were just, I had never discussed with anyone, and she suddenly would slip out and she would know it. Various things along that theme. Okay. Now, when you observed the fact that your mother seemed to have knowledge that she should not, did you conclude therefore she had a source of knowledge that you were not familiar with, or did you conclude from that she had magical powers and abilities that normal people do not have? It was an evolving thought. At first, I thought it was a source, which relatives were telling her information. Did I tell that to someone? Could she possibly have known? Obviously, I didn't jump to the conclusion my mother had magical powers. I first was thinking, who could know? And I remember from when I was young that she used to listen in on my brother's phone calls. So we had a three-way, and when I was on the phone with a friend of mine, I would push the three-way, and if it clicked over, it meant no one else picked up the line. So I knew I was free on the line. So I knew she wasn't listening in on my phone. It didn't occur to me that it had been tapped. I just thought that there had to be other sources, and I finally eliminated any source and began to believe that she had abilities beyond which I could understand. So, are you saying that you truly believe that your mother had these superhuman powers to know things that other people did not know? It was the only conclusion I could come to. And did you conclude that your mother could read minds? No. Then how did you conclude that your mother attained the information if she did not read minds? I did not know. So, did you ever discuss with your brother the fact that your mother had some sort of superhuman power? I didn't believe my mother was a superhuman being. I didn't understand the aspect about her, and I discussed it with my brother, I believe, several times. But you were aware that normal human beings don't just pick up information unless they pick it up through normal senses. That is, by seeing or hearing. Is that correct? Objection. Argumentative. Overruled. You may answer. Right. Yes. And you felt that your mother had the ability to pick up information that went beyond the average senses. Is that correct? It was the only thing I can conclude. And so you concluded that somehow she had the powers and abilities beyond the normal human being. Is that correct? Yes. And did you find this to be astonishing? Basically. Had you ever known any person in your life who had such extraordinary powers and abilities? No. Were you curious enough about this to talk to your mother about it? I didn't have that level of communication where I could ask her, how do you know these things? I couldn't do that. Did you find it extraordinary enough that you discussed with your father, is mom some sort of superhuman being? No. This is just something that you kept to yourself, essentially. And you didn't share this information with your mother, that your mother was a super being, with other persons. Well, I wasn't going to tell a friend of mine this. It's sort of outlandish, and I was having difficulty believing it myself. Even when I believed it in the back of my mind, I found it difficult to believe, and yet it was the only possible way. It baffled me. And I am sure I said something to my brother about it, but pretty much just kept it to myself. I certainly didn't bring it up to my mother about it. Well, you're telling us that at some point you, you accepted this to be a true fact because you eliminated all other possibilities. Is that correct? Right. And who was your closest friend after you reached the age of 16, 17, and 18 in California? These were friends that I know for sure for a year since I kept moving. In Beverly Hills, a guy by the name of Danny Roberts, I had met him when I started going to school, Beverly Hills High School. And when you were living in Calabasas, your closest friend was Craig Signorelli. Is that correct? Yes. And at any time, did you ever tell Danny Roberts or Craig Signorelli that, incredible as it may seem, your mother has the extraordinary superhuman power? No. Did this superpower of your mother bear upon your actions at all between the Thursday night that you believed your parents were going to kill you until you finally shot your mother to death on Sunday? I don't think so. Did you say in your direct examination that you felt that you were not capable at 18 years old? You felt that you were not capable of surviving on your own? I don't remember if I said that. Page 42483, volume 260. Levin says, can we have a moment? Line, says Abramson. Mr. Conn says, 7 through 18. Abramson says, objection, no impeachment. Court says, Mr. Levin? He does not want Ms. Abramson answering. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, will the court take a look at that section? Court says, okay. Let's have the question read back as a result of this. The court reads the question back, or court reporter does. Court says, in your answer, I don't remember. What was the question now? Did you say that in your direct examination you felt that you were not capable at 18 years old of surviving on your own? And his answer was, I don't remember. You can't answer the question based on that transcript, says the court. Mr. Conn says, do you remember being asked the following questions and answers in that court on Monday? Remember, or December the 11th. Question, was there anything about your life as it existed in August of 1989 that you believed would allow you to be self-sufficient, that is, to be able to survive on your own? Answer, I don't understand what you mean. Question, did you feel that you, in August of 1989, if you ran away, that you could survive on your own? Answer, if I ran away, you mean hiding from my parents? Question, yes. Answer, no. Do you remember that? Can I see it? Are you able to hear the questions that are being asked of you when I ask them, Mr. Menendez? Objection. Of course he can hear. He is entitled to see it. The court says overruled. And the witness says, yes, I can. Right, yes. Mr. Conn says, do you remember those questions and answers? No. You still don't remember these questions and answers? I said them, I just don't remember saying them. Okay. Is it true, Mr. Menendez, that in August of 89 that you did not believe your answer to be self-sufficient, or you did not believe yourself to be self-sufficient, that is able to survive on your own? In terms of hiding from my father, I said the answer is no. So what you're suggesting by your testimony is simply that you would be unable to hide from your father. Is that correct? Right. You were not suggesting that you were not able to be self-sufficient, were you? I had never really thought about it. I had never tried. I never thought about the possibility that I would have to. Well, I never considered it. Well, at the age of 18, did you feel that you were healthy enough and intelligent enough to be self-sufficient if you had to do that? I suppose. You saw no reason why at the age of 18 you would be able to care for yourself or on your own, did you? Hiding from my father? Correct, hiding from your father. I don't know. That would entail a lot of work. I don't, in terms of keeping my identity secret and keeping on the run, if I could go back, I believe that I would be able to do it. At least I'd be able to seriously try. What I am asking you is putting aside the issue of the fact that you had to hide from your father, did you feel that, were you healthy at the age of 18? Yes, I was. Did you have normal intelligence or above normal intelligence? I have no idea. I wasn't stupid, if that's what you mean. I had at least normal intelligence. Did you feel that you had above normal intelligence? No. Did you have any reason to believe that you had above normal intelligence? Just the opposite, actually. But I believed that I could function and that I could work. Okay, so putting aside the question of hiding from your father, you felt that you were strong enough and intelligent enough to be self-sufficient as any other healthy and intelligent 18-year-old? Objection calls for speculation. Overruled, I suppose. Mr. Conn says, you say you suppose or you know that you could. I never tried it. When I was 18, I guess so. I didn't know anything about the world in terms of how to make money or how to write a check or how to get credit cards. But I suppose I could have learned and gotten to a bank and asked about it. And I mean, yes, I suppose. Now, in your direct examination, do you remember testifying that you had an emotional 20 or 30-minute conversation with your brother Lyle on that Thursday? No. All right, directing counsel's attention to volume 260, page 43, 466. Ms. Abramson asks for line. Mr. Conn says lines 10 through 23. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, the defense objects. It's not impeaching. In fact, there wasn't a question that preceded counsel citing the transcript. The court says there was no question asked by Mr. Conn just now. Mr. Levin says, No, there's no impeachment contained in that passage. The court says, All right, let me see it. The question was whether or not the defendant recalled having a 30-minute emotional conversation when? On that Thursday, says Mr. Conn. And what is your answer? The answer was no, says Mr. Conn. Abramson says, Objection. Court says, What is your answer? The witness says, The answer was, I didn't recall saying that on direct, although I think I don't recall specifically. Court says, Okay. You may read the question and answer. Mr. Conn says, Do you remember being asked the following by the attorney in this courtroom on December the 11th? Question, was there any other discussion with respect to yourself and Lyle Menendez about protecting yourself? Answer, well, at first we discussed whether or not we would go to the relatives. The police was brought up. Those were discussed and at some point we talked about getting a knife or getting some sort of weapon, and we discussed getting a gun, and we decided on that. It wasn't a short conversation. It was at times we were yelling, him saying, I want to leave, me saying we can't, me coming up with this, and just it was an emotional 20-minute, 30-minute conversation, maybe longer. Do you recall that testimony? I do recall that now. Yes. Okay. This 20 or 30-minute conversation, what were you referring to? I was referring to the time when I had run up to the guest house up until the time basically we had decided to get guns. It was very emotional conversation. At times I was crying, at times I was yelling, and Lyle was pacing and getting frustrated with me. And we talked through the night, but it was an emotional period. At the beginning, I just remember it was heated and emotional. What was it that lasted only 20 to 30 minutes, perhaps longer? Up until the time we had decided to get guns. Now, did you feel that at the time that you made this decision after 20 or 30 minutes to buy shotguns that might possibly be used against your own parents, that it was one of the most important decisions in your life? We did not. Objection misstates the testimony, Your Honor. The court says objection sustained, the answer stricken. Mr. Conn says, You said that you had a conversation that lasted about 20 to 30 minutes, perhaps longer, and then you decided to get guns. Is that correct? Decided to get guns, handguns. We never considered getting shotguns. Okay. Now, did you feel that at the time that you made this decision to buy handguns that might possibly be used against your parents, that it was one of the most important decisions in your life? That particular decision, no. We were just doing it as a self-defense thing. And I didn't think that, at least I strongly hoped that it would not come to that. The night was one of the most significant nights I have ever had in my life, though. So you feel it was not one of the most important decisions in your life, correct? That decision and the night in general and the conversation was one of the most significant. I think that what stood out more and what was more significant to me was the conversation with my mother in the den just before, when she revealed that she's known all along. Now, but what I am asking you about is not that night or the conversation. I am asking you about that decision to get a handgun after 20 to 30 minutes, perhaps longer, to be used against your parents. Did you feel that that decision was one of the most important decisions in your life? Objection misstates his testimony. Rephrase the question, says the court. Mr. Conn says, yes. Did you feel that that decision to get handguns was one of the most important decisions in your life? I guess looking back on it, it was one of the most significant. At the time, I didn't think so. At the time, did you have any reservations about the fact that you had arrived at this decision after only 20 or 30 minutes or perhaps longer? Objection, argumentative, overruled. I don't know what you mean by reservations. I didn't want to be in this position. I didn't want to have to get guns. I wanted to take guns, but I wanted to take back what I had told my brother and didn't want. I wish my brother had never confronted my dad. I realized that it was a stupid mistake and I didn't want to do this. But in terms of reservations that night, I don't think so. The next morning I did. The next morning you had reservations about getting handguns? Right. Is that the same morning that you went out shopping for handguns? Before then, yes. You're saying that you had some reservations Friday morning? You put aside those reservations and then you went out shopping for handguns? Essentially. Well, then let me ask you this. Friday morning, how long did you have reservations about getting a handgun to possibly be used against your parents? I woke up, it was a brand new day, and I just didn't want to think about what had happened the night before. I didn't want to think about the implications of it. I didn't want to think about what my mother had told me, and I just pretended that it was not happening. And I went out on the court and the tennis court and I played and I didn't want to think about it. Court says, "Okay, let's just take a momentary break. One of the jurors needs a moment. Is that correct?" A juror needs a moment. Then we have another brief pause. Okay, we'll continue with the cross-examination. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe it's hot or cold or something. I don't know. Or they're not feeling well. Did you feel that at the time that you made the decision to buy handguns Thursday night, that the decision to actually use those weapons against your parents would be the most important decision of your life? Certainly. And is this something that you discussed with your brother that night? I specifically remember a conversation about not thinking in terms of Lyle wanting to run away, saying, "Unless you absolutely believe you're going to be able to use this, we've got to run away." And me saying, "I'm not sure." But I remember that on Friday. I just don't remember I had that particular conversation on Thursday night. I just remember it on Friday for some reason and not Thursday. Okay, well, at some point between Thursday and Sunday, did you discuss with your brother the importance of the decision to actually use handguns against your parents? I don't understand what you mean by that question. Well, did you say to him or did he say to you at any time, "We're talking about using lethal force against our own parents. We better be very, very sure that this is the correct thing to do"? The witness says, essentially, that's what he said. Except he talked about mom and he said, "We were talking about, I don't know if we use lethal force, using the gun against mom if they came at us. And unless you absolutely believe that you can do it, this is pointless and we better get out of here." And I think it was just another way of him saying, "Let's leave." And I said, "I don't know if I can." And he said, "Well, you better think about that because otherwise staying around is just inviting bad things to happen." So at some point, did you conclude that you could actually do this? You could actually use weapons against your own parents? I never discussed it with Lyle again. Well, after he told you that it's something that you better be sure about, you did not conclude one way or the other whether you would be able to use handguns against your own parents. I really didn't want to think about it. Thinking about it was painful. The whole situation was painful, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to face it. You were talking about potentially taking the lives of your parents, is that correct? If it came down to that, yes. And are you telling us that you really didn't want to think about the decision before you made the decision? Objection, it's argumentative. Rephrase the question, says the court. Mr. Conn asks, "Are you saying that you didn't want to think about that decision?" I didn't want to think that it would have come down to that. I didn't believe that it would have come down to that. And I didn't think about the possibility or the realities that it could happen. But you discuss with your brother the circumstances under which you would actually use the weapons against your parents? I believe concerning my father, I did. I'm sorry? Concerning my father, I believe I did. What did you discuss? I told him that if he tried to get in my room and have sex, that I would use the gun if I was able to. Okay, and that was to stop the sex, is that correct? Right. And that's when he brought up mom, I believe, and said, well, unless you're absolutely sure you can use it against mom, he didn't think it was going to be a one person effort, that then we better leave. And that's when he told me to think about that seriously. Who didn't think that it would be a one person? Hold on, I got a phone. Sorry, my doctor's office was calling me, and now I don't know where I left off. Who didn't think that it would be a one person effort? Is that where I left off, or did I? He didn't think it was going to be a one person effort. That then we better leave, and That's when he told me to think about that seriously. Who didn't think it would be a one person effort? We didn't think it would be just my dad coming in. Why not? Because I didn't think about them that way. Because you didn't think about them what way? I didn't think about that my mother could be in the house and it would only be my father coming after us. That didn't if it was just relating to the sex, then obviously that's what I thought. But in terms of death, that's not how I thought about it. So you thought that if you were going to be killed by your parents, it would necessarily mean both parents coming at you at the same time? That's what I thought. I didn't think about the different scenarios or how it could happen, but it just didn't occur to me that my mother could wait in the bedroom as my father did. I That didn't occur to me. It didn't really occur to me one way or the other. Well, you must have between Thursday and Sunday, didn't you contemplate scenarios in your mind under which you might be called upon to make a decision as to whether you should shoot and kill your own parents? I contemplated it after realizing that we could not get handguns and that it had to be shotguns. That the situation that would arise would be I would be in my bedroom, my father would be coming in, and that there would be a struggle, or in some way I would try to shoot him or stop him for the sex, but I didn't think about it in any other way. Well, that only pertains to a sexual assault, is that correct? Right. And you're telling us that you believed that, totally aside from the sexual assault, you believe that your parents wanted to kill you to keep you and your brother from revealing the secret. Is that correct? Right. Like, how many times does he have to say it? He's never faltered on that. So you anticipate at that time that there might be an attempt upon your life and the life of your brother that was totally unrelated to the sexual assault. Is that correct? Right. And so, in order to ensure for yourself that you were not facing lethal force unnecessarily against your own parents, did you spend time between Thursday night and Sunday night contemplating in your own mind scenarios in which you might be called upon to make the decision whether you were going to shoot and kill your own parents? Friday? Objection. It's argumentative and compound. The court says it's argumentative as phrased. Rephrase the question. Mr. Conn says, yes, between Thursday and Sunday night, did you contemplate scenarios in your own mind in which you might be called upon to shoot your parents? Friday night specifically, I remember that. What scenario did you contemplate Friday night? Friday night, after my mother told me that the fishing trip had been changed from the morning to the evening and reminded us that we were still going on it, I thought about that. It might happen on the way to the fishing trip and that something was planned for an accident to happen or on the fishing trip. I really wasn't sure, but that made me very uneasy and paranoid, and I thought about it that night. So are you saying that the only scenario that you contemplated in your mind from Thursday night when you first concluded that your parents were in fact going to kill you until Sunday night was the fact that perhaps when you went on the fishing trip on Saturday, they would try to kill you? No. I'm saying that Friday night, I specifically remember thinking that. Whether I thought about them saying, let's go to the park and doing it someplace away from the house or coming into my room at night. Generally, my thinking was it was going to happen at night, and whether they could, whether they would use a knife or whether my dad would get guns or what would be the situation. I don't specifically remember thinking one scenario would happen. I don't specifically remember. All right. My question to you is not whether you concluded that one scenario was more likely than the others. What I'm asking you, Mr. Menendez, is once you concluded that your parents were going to kill you, did you contemplate in your mind scenarios in which you would be called upon to make a decision as to whether or not you would shoot or not shoot your parents? Objection. It's argumentative and it's already been asked and answered. Overruled. I think I understand what you're saying. I don't specifically remember contemplating anything other than if they came to my room at night and I would have my gun in there and I would still use it. I would use it then. That's the basic thought in my mind that I remember. Whether I thought about other ways that it would happen, it's difficult to remember now 6 years later, but I may have. I don't know. Okay, so you concluded that if they came to your room at night, that is a situation in which you would shoot your parents. Right. That is one scenario that you contemplated in which you would shoot your parents. Is that correct? Yes. Now, were you talking about a situation where if they knocked on the door and said, Erik, can we come in for a second and talk to you about something? No. You would not shoot them under those circumstances? Of course not. So, what are the circumstances you were contemplating in which you said, yes, this is the situation in which I would use lethal force against my parents? Well, I kept the gun next to my bed in case the door was burst open and I was faced with that situation. I didn't know whether or not I could do it. I didn't know whether or not what they would have or whether it would be other people and not them. I had no idea. I really didn't have a clue, but I kept it there for comfort and for security. So he felt at any moment at night someone was going to burst in his doors. Could be his parents, could be someone his parents hired, perhaps. Okay, so are you saying that you contemplated that if your parents were to come and burst open the door to your room, that is a situation in which you would shoot your parents? Is that correct? Yes. Now, did you contemplate whether or not you would look first to see if your parents were armed, or are you saying that you would just shoot at the sight of your parents coming through your bedroom door? Are we really doing this? This is your line of questioning. I think I liked Pam and what's his name? Lester Kuriyama or whatever. I think I like them better than these two or than Mr. Conn. I keep wanting to call him Doctor. I don't know why. Mr. Conn. Um he's just asking some of the dumbest questions. Am I right? Like, if you're really trying to get to the bottom and to the truth of were they abused, why are you asking these stupid nitpicky questions? Well, were you gonna shoot them if they knocked on your door and said, "Hey, can we come in and talk to you?" What kind of a question is that? That's so dumb. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. Khan, for even existing, for the dumbest questions that you're asking. We should really be asking questions about the abuse, right? Ask him questions about, push back about the abuse. But no, they don't want to because they don't want more about that coming out. So then they got to nitpick stupid things like he's making it up or he's, gone insane. I don't know. He says, I remember that I thought about whether or not I was going to be able to shoot because every time I tried to stop my father when he came into my room, I would usually freeze. That was probably something he was worried about, was whether he would freeze or protect himself. And I remember thinking I'm going to freeze up or I'm actually going to be able to do this. And I don't know. I mean, I assumed if the doors burst open, there would be some type of weapon they would have. Can you imagine the anxiety and how much on edge they were all the time, thinking that his door could just open up at any time and Jose could walk in the room, or Jose and Kitty could walk in the room, threatening harm, threatening bodily harm or unwanted things to happen to your body? This is wild that he's got to actually like go through this like this. I don't know. To me, it's a little wild. Anyways, he says, that's how I envisioned it. I didn't envision the door bursting open so they could speak with me. Well, I take it, Mr. Menendez, that you didn't want to make a mistake between Thursday night and Sunday night and shoot your parents unnecessarily, did you? I didn't think that there would be a mistake. No. And you wanted to be absolutely sure that you were doing the right thing, is that correct? Essentially, yes. And in order to ensure that you would do the right thing, did you stop and consider under what circumstances you would actually fire your weapon? Once I realized that we could not get a handgun and there was only a shotgun or a rifle to get, the limitations were much greater in terms of being able to have the gun around me. And it was only really in my bedroom is where I thought it would happen anyways. This also proves that like they weren't thinking in the right minds, because if they could have gotten shotguns and then also like been put on a wait list for the handguns if they wanted something to be like more portable, but they weren't necessarily thinking. They were just like, we got to do this to protect ourselves. This is the first thing we can get and we're fearful right now, so it was like an urgency thing. Whereas if they had thought about it, they could have done both. They could have bought rifles then and there and also put their name on a waiting list, for the 2-week clearance period or whatever to get handguns so that they would have something more portable with them if they needed something smaller. So it goes to show that they weren't really thinking it through. It wasn't premeditated like they thought. Um, they know whether I thought that they would hire burglars. Wait, let me back up. Once I realized that we could not get a handgun and there was only a shotgun or rifle to get, the limitations were much greater in terms of being able to have a gun around me. And it was only really in my bedroom is where I thought it would happen anyways. Whether I thought that they would hire burglars to come in the house and ransack the house and shoot us in an accidental way or a pretended way, or whether they would do it themselves wasn't certain. But I didn't know what would happen, and it was that uncertainty that brought a general deal of anxiety. And I figured if, at least I remember thinking that that it was going to, or most likely would happen at night, late in the morning or at night as I was walking to my bedroom or as I was asleep sometime around there. I'm not asking you if you were certain as to how it would happen. I'm asking you if you contemplated scenarios in which you would be called upon to make decisions as to whether or not you should shoot or not shoot. I think he just gave you a whole bunch of scenarios that he thought about. No. You never contemplated any scenarios? I can't remember any that I can give you with all candor that I actually contemplated this scenario versus that scenario. He's but what he just said was a whole bunch of things that were possibilities that could have happened. Not necessarily that they were going to happen, but things that went on through his mind. So he just gave you a bunch of scenarios and ways in which he thought his parents were going to do it. I don't know what more this guy is really asking for. Um, Next question. Well, did you ever discuss with your brother the question of what do we do, Lyle? For example, if we know that our parents are arming themselves in the next room, but we can get away, what do we do in that situation? Do we wait for the attack? Do we go to the police? How do we handle a situation like that? I discussed with my brother the fact on 2 separate occasions that I didn't want to sleep in my bedroom, that I thought I was particularly vulnerable in my bedroom because he was way over in the guest house. And what would I do if they came to my room and he was over in the guest house? And how would I would I have to do this alone? What was going to happen? I remember discussing that. That's scary because he didn't have his brother near him. He's in a whole separate building and wouldn't be able to help in that situation. But before then, I really thought that there would be some sign from my parents that would give away what my dad, especially my dad, was thinking. All right. So one possible scenario that you discussed with your brother is what would you do if your parents were to come to your room and Lyle was not around? Is that correct? Yes. And what resolution did you reach concerning whether or not under those circumstances, whether to shoot or not? Sorry. I read too fast and I skip words in my brain. That I didn't know whether or not I would be able to fire, but essentially I would be on my own was the conclusion. So basically, he didn't know if he'd be able to do it. So your purpose for discussing that scenario was because you were concerned that you might freeze and not be able to fire. Is that correct? No. I discussed that with him on Friday night after my mother told me that the fishing trip had changed and we went back outside and I said, I don't want to sleep in my bedroom. I want to sleep in the guest house. And I discussed it with him on Saturday night after the altercation with my mother in the foyer, in which I again said, I want to sleep in the guest house. And he said, sleep in your bedroom. My question is the purpose for discussing that situation in which you are alone in your bedroom and your parents come in was because you wanted to discuss with your brother the possibility that you might freeze. Is that correct? No, just that I was vulnerable in my bedroom. My question to you is did you discuss scenarios such as suppose we believe our parents are about to kill us within the next half hour? Do we shoot and kill them? Do we leave and go to the police? What do we do? Other than what I've just told you, I don't remember discussing any more scenarios. But it was important for you not to make a mistake that weekend, wasn't it, Mr. Menendez? It didn't occur to me that a mistake would be made. I thought the situation would be obvious. So you never addressed with your brother the question of when you would know for sure that your parents were going to kill you? Objection asked and answered. Sustained. Finally. Okay. Did you ever discuss with your brother whether you would shoot your parents only at the time that guns were pointed at you or whether you would shoot your parents at a time prior to the time that guns were pointed at you? What my brother said to me on Friday was, if mom comes at you, are you going to be able to use your gun against her? Again, because he didn't think I would be able to. I wasn't sure I'd be able to. I wasn't sure he would be able to. I didn't know what was going to happen. I said, I don't know. He said, well, you better think about that because otherwise there's no point in staying at home. And that's all I remember about that. My question to you is, did you ever discuss with your brother whether you would kill? He answered you. He said that's the only discussion they ever had about it. This prosecutor is really getting on my nerves. Whether you would shoot your parents only at such a time that guns were actually being pointed at you, or did you discuss with your brother whether you would shoot your parents prior to that time that they were actually posing that imminent threat to you? Objection asked and answered. Overruled. I don't remember, says the witness. You recall no such discussions as you sit there today? I don't recall thinking of the possibility that I could shoot my mom if she wasn't coming to kill me. I never thought about that. I thought the situation would be obvious when it presented itself, and I don't remember discussing any more than that. At any time that weekend, did either you say to your brother or did your brother say to you, I don't want to kill my parents and I will do anything to avoid that from happening? I definitely said, I don't want to kill my parents. I'll do anything to avoid that from happening. I don't remember saying that. Did you feel that you would do anything to avoid that from happening, Mr. Menendez? With relation to my father or my mother? With either of them. With my father, I absolutely felt I would try to defend myself. With my mother, I was not certain. With your mother, what? I was not certain. You were not certain that you could do anything to avoid that from happening. I was not certain that I could do something to avoid that from happening. I'm not asking you if you could do something to avoid that from happening. What I'm asking you is, did you feel that you would, at that time, that weekend, did you feel that you would do anything to avoid being put into a situation where you might have to take the lives of your parents? I'm not sure I understand the question. Do anything to avoid being put into the situation? I didn't think I would have a choice. Well, didn't you feel that if you left, you didn't have to make that choice? I could not leave. So you were not willing to leave and avoid being put in a position where you would have to make that choice, were you? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Now, did you discuss with your brother whether you would shoot and kill your parents under circumstances short of absolute necessity? I don't remember doing so. Did you think about that at any time? I don't remember thinking that. And then you don't remember discussing it with your brother? No. Did you feel that you would shoot your parents under circumstances short of absolute necessity? I don't know. Did you want it clear in your mind what circumstances would require a lethal response? I didn't think there would be any ambiguity about it. I thought it would be obvious and nothing else occurred to me. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I thought it would be obvious. Did you feel that perhaps you and your brother might see the circumstances differently or interpret the circumstances differently, and so perhaps it would be a good idea to talk about it when do we shoot and when do we decline to shoot? Objection, argumentative. Rephrase the question. It's he keeps asking the same stupid questions over again, but also who cares if they asked or talked about this? And they weren't in their right mind. So it's not like they were thinking things logically. It's not like they have the time to reflect like they do now. So whether they thought it or not has no bearing on their mental state. In fact, the fact that they didn't think about it probably shows that they weren't in a mental state to think logically and that it was out of fear. Mr. Khan says, did you feel that it would be necessary? Do you feel that there was a possibility that you or your brother might interpret the circumstances wrongly? Never considered that. Did you feel that you and your brother should reach some sort of agreement concerning the circumstances under which you would shoot to kill your parents? Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor, assumes facts, not in evidence regarding killing his parents. Overruled, says the court. No. Now, you said that you generally thought that it would happen at night. That was my feeling. Why did you conclude that your father and your mother would not kill you in the daytime? I didn't conclude that they wouldn't do it in the daytime. I didn't absolutely conclude that it would be them either, especially after my mother said that about the fishing trip. But generally, I related it to the sex, and I just pictured it happening at night. Well, the issue of the threat of your parents killing you for revealing the family secret was not necessarily tied into any sexual interest that your father had in you, was it? It wasn't necessarily, yet that's just the way I thought about things. Why did you think that your father would only try to kill you at night during sexual assaults? No, I didn't think that. I was also terrified of that happening, and I figured that would happen at night, and that's why I put the two together. But why does the sexual assault necessarily have anything to do with the attempt by your parents to kill you to prevent you from revealing the family secret? It doesn't. I am just saying that I thought that that would happen at night, and for some reason, I just went along thinking that the other might or must have to happen at night too. I don't know if it was logical. I didn't think that it absolutely happened that way. It's just that was the way that my mind is what I am telling you. Did you see any logical connection between the two at the time? Yes. What was the logical connection that you saw at the time? My father would have to kill me before he had sex with me because he wasn't going to let it happen again. Now, the question I am asking you is, did you see any logical reason why simply because your father might sexually assault you at night that therefore the attempt on you by your parents would occur at night? Looking back at it, no. At the time, it's just the way I thought about it. How many more times does he have to tell you that? At the time, did you see any logical connection between the two? At the time, I put the two together. Whether it was logical or not, I don't know. Well, that's my question. At the time, did you see a logical connection? I don't know if I saw a logical connection. I just thought that would happen at night, and the thought that the other might, well, then happen at night too. I don't know if it was logical or not. It's just the way I was thinking. If he has to repeat himself one more goddamn time, I've had it with this prosecutor. Now, did you ever consider in your discussions with Lyle about the possibility of shooting your parents that it might be necessary to shoot only one parent who was attacking you rather than both? I remember thinking when my father was banging on my door that if I shot dad, mom would be right behind him with the rifle in the bedroom once she heard shots go off. I never discussed it with my brother other than on Sunday morning when I told him what had happened. Well, what I'm asking you is, did you ever discuss with your brother the possibility that perhaps just one parent, maybe your father, would be the one to try to kill you rather than both parents? No. That is something that never entered into your discussions with Lyle at any time between Thursday and Sunday? Objection asked and answered. Overruled. How many times does he have to answer it? I don't remember it entering into our discussions, whether we talked about it openly. Hold on, I need water. Sorry, my throat got real dry there. Um, he doesn't remember it talking about it. Mr. Conn says, so you do not recall any discussions with your brother concerning that possibility. Is that correct? Asked and answered, says Mr. Levin. The witness says, right. Overruled, the answer will stand, says the court. So, are we going to let him ask it two more times, three more times? I don't know. Seems really excessive. Mr. Khan's next question. Did you ever discuss with your brother the possibility that you might be presented with a situation in which non lethal force might be sufficient to stop your parents rather than lethal force? That definitely never occurred to me. And it was never discussed with your brother? I couldn't see how non lethal force could or would stop them. Certainly not my father. It just never occurred to me. Did you ever discuss with your brother the possibility that in protecting yourself from your parents, you might be able to wound but not kill your parents? Did I discuss that or did I think about that? I mean, I just said I'm going to try to shoot my gun. I didn't know whether it would kill them or wound them. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I didn't discuss it with my brother. Well, what I am saying is, did you consider, as you were thinking about the possibility, let me ask you this, Mr. Menendez. The possibility of shooting your parents with a gun was not something that you took lightly between your Thursday night and Sunday night, was it? It was not something that I took lightly, but it was something that I didn't really think it was going to have to come down to. So you are telling us that because it was something that you didn't want to think about, therefore you just put it on the back burner in your mind and didn't bother thinking about these things? Objection argumentative, sustained. Wow, he twisted that. Mr. Khan says, are you telling us that you didn't think about situations in which you might be called upon to make a decision affecting the life of or death of your parents? Objection, argumentative. It is argumentative, says the court. Mr. Khan says, Mr. Menendez, did you think about the possibility that in firing your weapon at your parents, perhaps you would wound rather than kill one of them? I remember thinking on Sunday night that I only had two shots, and I didn't know if this was going to be enough to even stop my father, much less wound him. Wow. That's how terrified he was. He didn't even think a shotgun was going to stop his father. What I am asking you, and that also proves that he doesn't understand the consequences of shooting someone with a shotgun. They try to make it like they should get the death penalty because it was so brutal because they used shotguns. They didn't even know, like, he didn't even think that a shotgun could stop his dad, let alone wound him. What I am asking you is, huh? What I'm asking you is, as you were thinking, I don't know what I'm reading here. My brain is shutting down. As you were thinking about the possibility that you might have to shoot your parents between Thursday and Sunday, did you ever consider shooting to injure them rather than not shooting to kill them? Never consider that. So you always assumed between Thursday to Sunday that if you were going to shoot your parents, you were going to shoot and kill them. Is that correct? Objection, it's argumentative. Rephrase the question, says the court. Are you saying that when you thought about shooting your parents between Thursday and Sunday, you always assumed that if you were to shoot your parents, you would only shoot and kill them? I didn't assume either way, but I am sure that if I would have sat and thought about that, if I fired a gun at my dad, it's signing my own death warrant, and if he doesn't die, I'm certainly going to. But I don't believe that I actually thought about it. I mean, logically, that's what I know, but I don't think that it ever really entered into my mind. So, would it be correct to say that you did not contemplate any situations in which your parents would simply be wounded rather than killed? Except on Saturday night when I was banging, or when he was banging on my door. Did you ever tell your brother that if you were to be called upon to use lethal force against your parents, that you wanted that force to be as lethal as it could possibly be? I don't think so. How did you arrive at the decision that you were going to use handguns for protection rather than any other form of weapon? It was small, and I figured the smaller the better. Why not a knife or a club or a bat? Because it's just not reality to think that I could ever confront my mother or ever confront my father in a way where I would have to fight them off. I mean, it's just not within the realm of my possibilities that I could ever stab my father or club him. I mean, it's so much more gruesome. I mean, I stood on top of my dresser when I was a kid with a slat from under my bed and thought about the possibility of him coming in, and I was going to try to club him, and every time even heard him get close to the door, I would immediately put it down. It's just not possible. Well, plus it also puts you have to be in much closer proximity to your abuser. And the point is you want to get away and you want distance. So a gun can give you distance as opposed to any of those other things that he mentioned. Mr. Menendez, this incident of August the 20th of 1989 did not occur when you were a kid. It occurred when you were almost 19 years old, correct? Right? And you realized when you reached that age that you were no longer a kid. Is that correct? Objection is argumentative. Overruled. If you're asking me if I felt differently than I did when I was 14 in terms of confronting my father, the answer is no. Whether I was 19 and weighed 40 pounds more than I was when I was 14 made no difference to me. I mean, the fact is, I was going to have to face the same man, and it wasn't a matter of physical strength. You didn't think at the age of at the age of 19 you were stronger and more capable of confronting your father than you were at 14 years old? Objection, misstates the facts. He wasn't 19. Overruled. Overruled. Go ahead and misstate the facts. Clearly, intellectually and physically, I was stronger than when I was 14. I am not denying that. I am talking emotionally. The idea of confronting my father never changed. Are you saying at the age of 18, at the time that you shot your parents to death, you felt just as weak and helpless against your father as you did when you were 14 and you felt absolutely no different? Essentially, you're absolutely right. Now, did you feel that at the age of 18 you might be able to use a baseball bat against your mother to protect yourself? No. Why is that? It's because I didn't see my mother in that light. I didn't see her attacking me alone, first of all. I couldn't conceive of that. I guess, really, I never thought about it. You never thought about using or protecting yourself with a non lethal weapon against your parents? Objection with the term to non lethal. That is vague. Sustained. Did you ever consider protecting yourself with a baseball bat against your parents? Yeah, I call also objection because you could strike someone once with a baseball bat and they could die. So still could be lethal. The question is, did you ever consider protecting yourself with a baseball bat against your parents rather than buying guns? No. I'm sorry? No. Did you ever discuss with your brother the circumstances under which it might be lawful to use force in self defense? I didn't imagine that killing my parents under this circumstance would be lawful. So you always thought that that if you had to kill your parents, it would always be unlawful regarding the threat that your parents were posing to you at the time? I never considered the police one way or the other. It didn't occur to me that there could ever be a reason that someone could lawfully, you just don't do that. And I couldn't imagine such a thing, meaning like manslaughter, or self-defense, I guess. But they won't let them use self-defense. So they got murder. But it should have been manslaughter because of the self-defense claim. So you never heard of the law of self-defense at that point in your life, Mr. Menendez? I had heard of the law of self-defense, but somehow your parents are just different. So are you telling us that at 18 you felt that even if your parents were attacking you and you were responding to a legitimate threat upon your life, that it would still be unlawful to defend yourself against your parents? Right. Even if when I thought I wish I could kill him when he was in my room and actually having sex with me, I thought that, yes, that I would go to jail afterwards. It never occurred to me that anything less would happen. So did you feel that this was law that applied generally to people in society, that it was always unlawful to kill another person, or did you think that the rule was special only when it came to the parent-child relationship? Objection. It's vague, compound, and argumentative. Sustained, says the court. Mr. Conn says, you said you thought it would be unlawful for you to kill your parents under any circumstances. Is that correct? Right. Did you feel that at the time that it would be unlawful for you to kill a stranger under any circumstances? Objection. Irrelevant. Overruled. Well, I guess if a burglar entered your home and was attacking you, or you were in a bar and someone pulled out a knife, I guess I never really gave it much consideration to be truthful, but I guess so. So are you saying that although you recognize that principle, you nevertheless felt that if you killed your parents under similar circumstances, it would be lawful? Objection, argumentative, sustained. Was it your belief that if you killed your parents under circumstances in which they were attacking you with a knife, that it would still be unlawful? I never thought about it one way or the other. But I never thought, I mean, your parents are your parents. I couldn't imagine explaining to the police what occurred and then saying, "Oh, okay, well, that's okay." I mean, it's just not conceivable. Okay, so you never discussed the legal implications of your actions in any way with your brother between Thursday and Sunday. Is that correct? Right. Okay, so now Friday morning you woke up in the guest house and you went outside to play tennis. Is that correct? Yes. Did you have to go into the main house to change your clothing before you went out to play tennis? No, I believe that I was wearing some type of pants or jeans, and I think went into my brother's bedroom and threw on a pair of shorts. And then you went straight from the guest house to the tennis court, is that correct? Right. Now, the previous night your father had lunged at you in your bedroom, is that correct? Yes. What was he saying as he was coming at you in your bedroom? I remember he told me to shut up, and I don't remember any specific words he was saying as he was lunging at me. And before he lunged at you, did he say something to the effect of, I told you never to tell anyone? Right. And you felt that at that point that perhaps your father was going to kill you. At that point, I didn't have time to think about whether my father was going to kill me. I was just trying to get out of the room. Okay, but in any event, after spending the night in the guest house with Lyle, there was no doubt in your mind on Friday morning that your father was going to kill you. Is that correct? No, I wouldn't say that. Late at night on Thursday, when we were talking, I guess clear early in the morning on Friday, I wasn't absolutely certain. By Friday morning, when I woke up, I didn't want to think about it. I just didn't want to imagine that this was real. So, when you say you didn't want to think about it, did you walk out of the door of the guest house saying to yourself, oh, well, if I get killed on the way out, I get killed on the way out. I am just not going to think about it. Right. I was not thinking about it. And you recognized, however, that perhaps your father was still waiting outside the door and was going to kill you as soon as you walked out that door, correct? I woke up, the sun was coming in, and I said, what happened last night is not real. I am just going to go out and I'm going to play tennis and just forget about it. And that's how I thought. Well, but my question to you, Mr. Menendez, is that when you walked out of the door of the guest house on Friday morning, you recognized the possibility that your father was outside the guest house waiting for you to come out so that he could kill you? Is that correct? No. Objection, argumentative, overruled. Mr. Conn says, and why is it that you felt Friday morning that your father was not going to be waiting outside the guest house to kill you? Because I didn't want to recognize the danger. I didn't want to think about it. I can't explain why I was like that because your brain has to shut it off in order for you to function and get through the rest of your day. So that's probably what he did. It was the next morning, and what happened the night before was too unbelievable, and I didn't want to think about it. So are you saying that because you didn't want to think about it, therefore you didn't believe that your father was waiting outside the door to kill you? Yes. And I take it that you felt that you were no longer in danger from your parents. I didn't consider it. But by not considering it, you felt that you were no longer in danger. Is that correct? I didn't think that I was in danger because I wasn't thinking about it. It was like a bad dream. But you're saying that by putting it out of your mind and not thinking about it, you felt there was no danger. Is that correct? Yes, I guess so. Okay. So you were out there on the tennis court playing tennis and you felt that there was no danger. Is that correct? I wasn't thinking about the danger. By not thinking about it, you told us, you concluded that therefore there was no danger as far as you were concerned. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, overruled. By not thinking about it means I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it one way or the other. This is so annoying. And he keeps having to answer the same questions over and over again. Mr. Menendez, sometimes you know something to be true and then you don't think about it, but you still know it to be true, don't you? Objection, argumentative is also vague, sustained. Mr. Menendez, sometimes when you feel that you don't want to think about it, do you still believe something to be true or not true, regardless of whether you're thinking about it? Objection, argumentative, and pointless. Sustained. I added that. Um, Obviously, that's not a real legal objection. Should be. As you were on the tennis court, did you feel that there was any danger from your parents? No. When was the next time you felt that your life was in danger? I don't know if I actually thought about, well, certainly when my brother came out, I accepted the fact that this is something that we had to do in terms of get guns. I think it was not until Friday night when I actually saw my mother in the foyer was the first time I really was confronted with the fact again. So are you saying that Friday when you were purchasing the shotguns in San Diego that you didn't feel that there was any danger to your life? Actually, on the way down to San Diego, I remember my brother's reaction to some things I was saying, which made me think about it again. But it was not until I was in front of my mother and she said that the fishing boat had been changed did it strike me again. So, but did you still feel as you were driving down to San Diego that your parents were going to kill you? At one time on the drive down to San Diego, I thought it more likely at the beginning of the drive. When you played tennis with Mark Heffernan on Friday? My recollection is that Mark Heffernan was there on Thursday. I don't believe he was there on Friday. Now, you recall the testimony of Mark Heffernan that he was there on Friday, not on Thursday. Is that correct? I recall that Mark believes that he was there on Friday. And you recall that Mark said he observed nothing unusual in your behavior. Is that correct? I don't know. Mr. Menendez, isn't it a fact that you played tennis with Mark Heffernan on Friday, but you are saying it was on Thursday because there was nothing unusual in your behavior when you played tennis with Mark Heffernan on Friday? Argumentative, Your Honor. Sustained. And did you hear the testimony of Mark Heffernan that he recalled that it was on Friday because he recalled that you were going to be fishing the next day? Did you hear that? I remember that. And you weren't going to go fishing on Friday, were you? No. The plan was always to go fishing on Saturday, is that correct? Yes. So you're saying that you went out to the tennis courts and you played tennis by yourself on Friday, is that correct? Yes, I remember being out in the tennis courts on Friday, and my best recollection when I really believe is that Mark was there on Thursday. Now, as you were playing tennis by yourself, were you completely able to dismiss from your mind any fear that you had about your parents killing you? I wasn't able to dismiss what was happening from my mind ever. So, are you saying that you still felt some fear as you were out there on the courts Friday? No, I didn't feel fear, but I just couldn't just think that I was in a different world. I was playing and I was pretending that it wasn't happening. And I remember picking up the balls and hitting them and thinking this was not happening. And at some point, I remember Lyle coming out, but the state I was in was still because of what had happened on Thursday. And what state were you in at that time? Not wanting to think about what was happening. So you weren't fearful? No. You have to put it out of your mind or else you're just going to be paralyzed with fear all the time, right? So it's a coping mechanism of being able to continue to live your life while a part of your life is terrifying and scary. But you need to like have your brain separate the two out so you can continue to live your life because otherwise it's too hard to function, too difficult to function. When your brother told you, what did your brother say to you at the time? He said something along the lines of, "Are you ready to go?" And that's what he said. Did you ask, "What are you talking about?" No, I knew what he was talking about. Either he said it or I knew it. And I said, "Listen, I've got a tournament coming up. I've really got to play tennis." What did your brother say? He said that he realizes it was the next morning and I probably didn't want to think about things, but the situation was still real and it was still reality and there was still danger. And I agreed and we left. Now, while you were playing tennis, were you looking around for your father at all? No. Did it occur to you that your father might come and attack you while you were on the tennis courts? No. When Lyle came out of the guest house, was he armed in any way? No. And you were not armed in any way? No. And so did you go straight from the tennis courts shopping for handguns? Essentially. And where was the first place that you went to? Big Five in Santa Monica. All right, let's take a recess at this point. We'll resume at 10 minutes after the hour. So we are going to we're going to stop here and we'll continue on the second half of the day. Um, in part 55. He's on the stand for a while, so I don't even know. I have to go through and sort them out. I'm trying to do half days now, so each episode is a half day, so we can get through it a little faster. Um, so, and then when we have 3 per week, that's going to help even more. So hopefully, we get through this second half of the trial, because we're about halfway through, and it's a 6-month trial. Like in real time, 6-month trial. In our time, it's taking forever, just because it's a long trial. All right, so that's where I leave you guys today. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Mr. Conn and his questioning. I can't stand it, and I'm sick of it, and I don't like it, and I think he needs to sit his ass down. And we need to talk about the real issue, which is the abuse in the family that was happening, and why these kids are still being overcharged and why they're still sitting in prison today. That's what irks me. They should have been out years ago, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. But they had to make an example out of these two for some reason, and basically fabricate the rich boy narrative and fabricate their narrative to make it seem like it was just cold-hearted whatever, and that the abuse, and even though, like, they're not even denying it in this trial that the abuse happened so far, but like the way that the prosecutors are questioning, like, so if the abuse was happening here, then why this or whatever, so they'll use it as, part of their questioning. So they're not even totally denying that the abuse happened, but yet they're not acknowledging the effects of what that abuse does to someone who grows up in that house their whole life, or their whole lives. There's 2 of them. Both children grew up there their whole lives under Jose and Kitty's craziness, all the time craziness. And it's scary that prosecutors don't give a crap about the abuse aspect of it and the significant effects of abuse that are proven over and over again. It's not contested, yet they're trying to contest it, trying to make it seem like you were just out there doing this for fun. You had it all planned out. You wanted the money. But they're not even getting to that. Like, they still haven't even gotten to that. I don't know. It infuriates me listening to these questions. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye now. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.